Welcome to the Seahawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do appreciate you for tuning on in here on a specially timed show here right around midday Pacific Standard Time. Hope you're doing well out there in your work day. Maybe I can help you get through just a little bit easier today with some nice content. Hopefully speaking, we've got some nice film to turn over. And I know looking at this past game against the Baltimore Ravens, there wasn't a lot of nice film to turn over. It was pretty bleak across the board. There were very few highlights or memorable plays or players within it. And Leonard Williams, in his first action with the Seahawks since coming over from the Giants, kind of got lost in that shuffle just a little bit. But indeed, in his first game action, he was as advertised. Not to say that he's a game wrecker. We put into perspective what he is as a player, who he is as a player, and what we were getting back in return. And though I know many people are out there in Seahawk land sort of thinking with daydreaming eyes towards a presence out there that could be like a DeForest Buckner type or like a Laron Payne type we're going to play this week, or Jonathan Allen type we're going to play this week. And he's just not necessarily quite that guy, but he's still a very good player. When we look at him first, before we dive into the film on him and just what he did from a play standpoint here this past week, I'm going to put over the top the grades for him this past season with both the Giants and the Seahawks. And so the grades you see here at the top are going to be his scores individually game by game when he was with the Giants. And then the score at the very bottom be his game here with our Hawks this past week. So we first do notice that he's been a fairly consistent player with the Giants over this year. He's had a couple of down games, a 44 grade, a 54 grade there against Seattle, where Bradford really gave it to him. And other than that, though, he's been okay. And he's had a couple of even bright spot games. Here, he gave you a good performance at a 69 grade. And he played 41 snaps in this game. But this would have been, I think, the fourth highest rated player, I think, in this game against on the defensive side of the ball against the Ravens. So he was good, at least on the numbers standpoint, when you look on the outside looking in. 44 snaps, about a good 5, 6, 7 of those snaps were to the special teams, when they're doing field goals or extra point attempts. So you got to kind of wipe some of those snaps off. Some of the other snaps were with him, quick action going away from him, or a run play being gone away from him where he just didn't have really a chance to impact the play. But to my eyes, reviewing the film, I was really impressed by what I saw with Leonard Williams in his first action. Quick off the snap, plus strength to kind of upper level strength of what you normally get, especially considering him from normally a 3-tech position. Long, able to use that length, able to, sort of wear a lineman down over the course of the play with that strength. It's sort of that slow burn kind of strength, if you know what I'm saying. And so he's able to really utilize all those elements along with some really good hustle, really high motor. And this guy is going to be a very good, important player on this defensive line. He was the highest graded player in this game on the defensive line. And though, as you can see on the grades here, he's dinged a little bit for those tackling numbers, where that's the worst part of what he got hit for, where he was 71 with his run defense, 55 with the pass rush, and 28-2 on the tackling. Because we were talking about it during the game, when you have your defense on the field for a long period of time and the offense can't get anything going and the defense just sort of has to languish out there on the football field for 3 quarters, by the time you do start to get into about halfway to deep into the third quarter, the tackling starts to fail away a little bit. And some of that is the modern age and tackling just not being as good as it once was, but some of that is also the fatigue factor setting in, where these guys start to just can't quite fully wrap up. You're just tired every play. You're just trying to catch your breath. That's all you can do. I've grabbed 11 plays here from this past game of Leonard Williams against the Ravens. And I think these plays are going to best encapsulate who he is as a player and what he brings to the table. I think it really does show off his myriad of skills. And I think that we're just sort of getting a little bit of a tease here for what he will be able to bring, because I can only imagine once he gets actually settled into the scheme and understands what he's doing and what's required of him, of how much maybe even better he can be. And he did this basically just coming off the plane, jumping onto the field pretty much from one step to the other. So it's pretty cool that he was even able to give us this kind of performance this quickly on that turnaround, as the trade just was consummated last week on Monday. Which did not give a lot of time for you to get in there and, understand what we're trying to do on our line. And keep in mind, with our defensive line, we've got some certain peculiar, little idiosyncrasies in there. The gap and a half scheme, and it's not just single or two gapping. It's sometimes a little bit of the in between. So there's a little more nuance at times in our particular scheme for what we ask for them. Let's go off the top though. Let's start off with just go down the line here on these cut-ups and take a look at them. And this first one is a little bit of what you get is the rarity and what he brings to the table in being a guy who at 3-tech can split double teams. And what he does in that is he oftentimes can split the double teams both by utilizing either power or utilizing, as he does here, quickness. He jumps to the gap, jumps into the A gap here. And in that jump to the gap, he sort of throws them off because they've got him targeted up in a certain place. They're expecting a certain thing here. Sorry, let me get this going a little bit faster. I want to roll this through a few times. And so he's not going to necessarily power. He's a little bit of power there, but he kind of gets it with a little bit of first step to get to the spot quicker than they think he's going to get there. I know with a big man like this, calling it quick is kind of a misnomer, but take my word for it. It's catching them a little bit off guard with how quick he gets, especially that second combo block, right? The Stanley block, 79, your left tackle there. He's like, oh, he got over into him. And it's Leonard first pressing into that A gap into the guard there. Throws off the double team, gets skinny, right? The skinny thing. Watch the skinny part. Where's that at? That's going to be right here. Gets skinny. See how he turns his body sideways? And then he's in pursuit. Now, it doesn't make the play, but what he does do is misdirect the running play from where they wanted to send this. Because the combo block there is supposed to happen right there at the point of attack. He sends the back to a completely different hole. So, a little bit of everything you get to see. A little bit of the refinement he brings as an elder statesman there by getting skinny. A little bit of the first step quickness that he brings there that throws off the double team block from the tackle. Nice little play here from Leonard Williams and good effort. Again, you're not going to make the play, but as a defensive tackle, rerouting the ball carrier out of the preordained hole is always nice. All right, let's go to the next one here. All right, on this play here, we're going to get him just beasting up. So puts a guy on his ass on this play. This really ain't technique. This is just to show you his power. He's taking Stanley here, your left tackle, and just dropping him right on his butt. Or not Stanley. Yeah, that's Stanley. That's the left tackle there. And again, you can see he's so quick with it that they're trying to bring the double team over here, and the double team can't even arrive. I don't even know if it's a double team pure. I think that guy's thinking that Seahawks are going to be bringing the edge. Hawks drop the edge, which confuses the linemen. So let me take that part back. But mano up here, he just ragdolls the guy. I mean, what more can you say? Let's just watch it one more time because it's kind of, I sort of am enjoying it. I'm liking it. Man, just get on your butt. See ya. And look at the effort of desperation for an offensive lineman is when you get him legs widening out, or they just hope, like, let me just widen my legs out and he can't get past the width. That's what I'll do. Nope, that don't work. Bye-bye. It's a nice little play there. Here we got him double teamed. What can he do against double teams? How does he hold up against double teams? This is kind of not a pure double. It's sort of a 1-2 where they're handing him off here a little bit. Maybe not a great snap here. I'm sure PFF would ding him on this pass rush grade, but you're essentially having the Ravens very certainly here decide prior to the snap that we're going to make sure we get both these guys with their hands on him here. You can see the center, Linderbaum, is sliding and gliding over there to the left side there to first instantaneously. He's not even thinking about Mario Edwards Jr. He's going right over there for Leonard to make sure that he's taken care of. So he also, with these double teams, quasi-double teams, whatever you want to call that, he's also going to take up his share of attention on the defensive line. Hawks weren't able to maximize that this past week. Doesn't mean they aren't going to be able to maximize it at some point during this year, though. All right. How about a little more technical aptitude shown from our man here? This is a pure swim move. Pure. And it's a swim move where he completely gets a fast win here off the snap. Whoop. Bye. See ya. As our guy holding on to his waist and spinning off like a hula hoop. Whoop. Bye-bye. But you also get this with the guy that's been, there's a downside when you don't get the guy who's, let's say in his prime, 25 to whatever, where he's got all of his youthful bounce to him. But you also get with the little bit of an older cat here, more of an ability to use their hands and do some things with that a younger player is not going to be able to call upon inside as well. They might be able to go to this move, but not utilize it as smoothly here. And he's right in there to help make the play. I don't even think he got credited necessarily on this tackle because you've got a village of tacklers coming in here, but he does his job, and I'm expecting him to do quite a bit more of this. You see a lot of this on the tape from him of using that swim move. Comes right up over the top, clears himself. It's the first step quickness to the swim move. First step quickness and get him out ahead. The swim move seals the deal. That's how he sort of uses that, and he goes to this move very often on his tape. When you go to the Giants film and whatnot, you'd see a lot of this. Here's not as much the quickness. He just kind of sets him up by making him think he's going to hunker down. It's also the threat of the power, the swim move here, where he's got Linderbaum hunkering down, thinking he's going to get bull rushed. He's going, man, this 3-tech is going to do what they try to do when they got a one-on-one against the center, which is just push me into the backfield. And then he does call upon it. But he can also do it off first step quickness too, where he just hits to a side and then goes to the swim move. But he's got this move in his bag, no doubt about it. Nice little play there, and locates the ball carrier afterwards. All right, how about at the point of attack? How does he do? Can he hold up there? And this is the nice part of him where you can get a little bit of a feel for, kind of gives you almost some one-tech vibes, nose tackle vibes, and what he's able to do. He's aligned as a 3-tech here. Jaron's your one-tech on this play. But he does get that same kind of combo 1-2 block that we talked about before, but remains immobile. So that second block comes there and it doesn't have any impact on him. Now it's kind of maybe a little bit of a weak block here from Stanley on his effort there, but he's got to hit. It's a tough block for any lineman. You got to go boom, boom. You're going to that first hit and then you got to slide off to the second hit. But the key is that you've got to get some movement on that first one. And especially when his man there at the guard, Simpson, I believe, isn't getting anything done you can see the play goes nowhere, and it goes nowhere because it's going right at Leonard Williams. He shuts it completely down, makes the tackle. I mean, not only does he stay stout here at the point of attack, he dislodges from the blocker to then make the play. This is some of the beastiness you get. He's not a full-on beast. He's not a full-on creature of the night, but he is a very, very good defensive lineman, and in that upper-level part of the Tier 2 group of defensive linemen in this sport, I would say. Here we've got a play where he nearly causes an interception. Again, with 3-tech position here. Fights, that swim move I was just telling you guys about, employed here again. And I know I've got to cut this off at the end because I always have to be a little bit careful with how much footage I show of you guys on this. I don't get in trouble. But you can see the swim move comes in at the end. Lamar throws it over, and Devin Witherspoon jumps the route. I'll do this a little bit slower so you guys can see the kind of full culmination of the play here. But Devin Witherspoon jumps the route and has a little bit of a stone hands moment because he's got a good opportunity to make the catch here, no doubt about it. But first sets him up again with the power. We saw him do this a second ago with that swim move, right? First set him up with the power, get the lineman committed to having to root down and set up and hunker in there a bit. And then you're able to come back with the swim move and some of your bounce to get lateral because he is an athletic man. That's why they call him the big cat, is he is athletic for his size. So he can bounce off of you starting to hunker down and get a win with that. Boom, hunker. I'm going to go to the swim, bounce. And I've created the pressure, force Lamar to throw that faster than he wants. Or force him to just have to throw it because he's getting the pressure, and then Witherspoon not able to make the play. Witherspoon makes that play. We'd all be not only talking a lot about Devin and still continue to hype him up, but we'd also be going, man, Williams, though, too. He was the one who caused that. Here we've got him closing the rush lane up again here, just clogging things up. The thing to pay attention to, if you could for me on the first part of this, as I run this a little bit slower, is going to be see where the ball carrier is initially supposed to go here, which is over the A-gap. That run's supposed to go A-gap. But he has to kind of subtly bounce it to like the C. And the reason he's bouncing it is because of the push Williams is getting to force the ball carrier through. So a reroute play here on the ball carrier. Double team. Doesn't get moved. Manages to force him over away from where they want to go with the hole, and it's not much of a running play at this point. You get a couple yards on the play. But they're trying to get him sealed here. That's a pure kind of double team. Yeah, Linderbaum wants to get to Bobby too, and does a good job of kind of not even sort of eliminating Bobby without ever getting to the block on Bobby just in his placement. But he's got to keep both these guys off of him, and you can see how much ground is he losing. Maybe a yard there with the double team. And if he loses 2-3 yards, that's when that becomes a big hole there, and especially if Bobby gets pinned off the play. Just to run it one more time here and watch, is there's a lot of little things happening here on this one, but Bobby gets pinned off the play, and that play is going to go for probably a big hit. You have Brooks there who's shaded a little bit out of the gap, right? So Brooks, we could have trouble here, but Leonard closes that up pretty good. Not going to get a tackle number on that. Not going to register on that play. I don't even know if PFF's even going to really give him the right kind of score on that play, but does his job and does it well. Here's a play where he's just getting held right at the end. It's a subtle vet move right there. So on the right side of your screen, you're going to see him there aligned again as a 3 tech. Nice little rip move, not a rip move, but the little hand swipe move. This is Boye Mafe loves to go to this move on the outside a ton. A little double hand swipe. And then look at the subtle vet. Look at the subtle Baltimore vet there. I can't be mad about it. It's a officials probably will never call this, but watch the right tackle's left arm. I'm just going to hook that. I'm going to hook that thing in there. Just sticks it right up in the belly there. Hides it in really well. That is a hold. And he has to do it because why? Leonard Williams has beat his man. And that tackle knows it. And he's trying to save his quarterback. Now, Mario Edwards, shout out to him on this play as well for getting some pressure. But you're not allowed to just take your left arm out and go, I'm just going to hook you right here. No, that's outside the letter of the law. All right, how about again another little bit of view of him with some power? What about that power element? Let's bring that back into play, shall we? Here we got him. How about I show you him throw a lineman at a running back, basically. How about that for some power? Again, play going right down his alleyway, right at him. Double team block, holds up. Getting enough push into the backfield. I joke about him throwing the lineman. He's not really throwing the lineman, but he's controlling the lineman and eliminating the double team. The double team has no effect on him here. Look at that. He's not moved back a yard, folks. Look at his feet. Let's go slow. Just when he starts this play out, and keep in mind how hard it is for nose tackles to hold up at the point of attack with a double team. But watch where he starts on this play. Watch where his alignment is and watch how much push these two linemen get off. Not only does he not get pushed back, boom. Look at that. Not even a yard moved back. Not a yard moved back. And then he's got enough push then into the backfield to where he forces that lineman's back leg to end up clipping the running back, knocking the running back down, forcing the tackle. This is just a great play to me, probably, and there's a couple of great plays I'm going to show you here that are really nice, but just another play where it would be one thing for him to just do his job to hold up against the double team here. It's another thing when he kind of eliminates that and then is able to make the play. And I know the double team's sliding off to Bobby late, but that's pretty pure for how long that double team stays on him. That's not really just a simple slide, combo block where 76 is sliding right down. He's hunkering in there for a second. He's given his guy a lot of opportunity there to get that block sunk in on Williams. But as we saw here, the left tackle being Stanley can't do that. He's got nothing sunk in. Great play there by Leonard Williams. All right, what else we got here? Another lineman toss. How about a little bit more power? You can see him here right in the middle of your screen. He's going to throw Stanley. Stanley, kind of tough. I don't think that was Stanley. That was the left guard. But just completely throws him. Bye. Never good as a lineman when you end up on all fours as an offensive lineman post-play. That's usually going to be probably, I'm going to guess, a negative grade by the coaches. Hi, 76. Oh, you're going to try to push me out of the hole? Bye. And Boye Mafe makes the play because he's just so damn good. But Leonard Williams was there to help him out. Power, quickness, the combination of the two. Good players often have one skill. The toughest ones to deal with are the one that can provide multiple things on the field. They've got a lot in their bag they can go to. Leonard Williams can go a lot into his bag. This play is set up, because he's got the power, but it's also set up because of the quickness. And you have a lineman here kind of hitting a reach block on him by his alignment. So to unpack a little bit of this play for where he's thinking, because this is also a thinking man's play a little bit too, from how he decides to go to what he decides to go to. Because you can see in the alignment, see where 76 is about a half a yard to the left of Leonard Williams in his alignment? That's technically is going to be a reach block, because you have Leonard in a nose tackle alignment here. Mario Edwards is your 3-tech. So he's got to get to the reach block. He's worried about the quickness aspect of that. Williams is aware that he's worried about the quickness aspect of that. And he takes advantage by catching, when the lineman's going quick, he's catching that lineman in a quick mode, but he's like, I'm rooting down for power, sucker. I'm going to power here. You're thinking quickness. And it completely he's able to take advantage of the lineman. And that's how you get to a silly play where he's throwing the guy away. But it's not just him just hulking out on this play. It's him being aware of the fact that lineman is going to be frantically trying to get to his block as quick as he can, because the reach blocks are really hard. You look at why our Hawks are failing at times consistently in the running game. Often you can go back to the fact that they're not hitting their particular reach block. So this is an issue of, it's a tough pickle you put offensive linemen into when you can do it. When you can hit it and you can hit it right, there's big plays to be found everywhere. But it requires that lineman being able to get to it, and it requires the defensive lineman to be willing to sort of, take the bait on that and allow themselves to be blocked up, rather than paying attention to a little bit of how that lineman's coming at him. And if a lineman's coming at you like this, bump, 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 that's one thing, right? You got a lineman going like this to get to you. It's a different kind of speed in the way that you're going to engage him and how you're going to deal with him. All right, how about a little bit of penetration? Get a little bit of penetration is always nice, right? Let's finish up a little penetration here with our 11th cut up here clip-wise. And this is just another beautiful clip that shows off the quickness. No lineman ever gets a hand on him. It's a strange decision here. I think 76 just thinks he's going to be able to put a shoulder block into him here, and thinks just a little shoulder shrug is going to do it. But when you have a guy that's got lateral bounce quickness, not just quickness forward and back, but a little bit of lateral bounce quickness, where I can go a little sideways. It's a subtle sideways. It ain't a full bounce lateral step, but it's just a little bit of, I can move my body sideways while I got my feet here. And for bigger men, smaller guys, this isn't a hard thing, but when you're a guy 6'5", doing it, a little bit easier, and he just completely whiffs him. I mean, almost doesn't touch him coming all the way through here. But he is a big cat. That's the nickname for a reason. He truly is a big cat. He can do these kind of plays. Very, very bouncy, very quick. And then he's right on top of the ball carrier back there, not quite making the play. Not going to get the tackle number on this one. Again, I should have a TFL there, should have a count. You see him only marked for two tackles in this game. This is why we got to always go into the tape as well as the stats. The numbers in the tape, analytics, tape, numbers. It all tells the tale at the end of the day. And when you do unravel the tape on Leonard in his day, he was a really, really impactful player on that line for what he brought. Not a game wrecker type defensive lineman. Again, I want to try to make that, because I know people are going to be like, this for a second rounder, or, Buckner would have been better. He's not in that realm. That's not what the Seahawks traded for. But when I say that in the title of As Advertised, it is as advertised. This is the guy you thought you were going to be getting from the New York Giants, and he is going to be helpful this year, and maybe helpful beyond the year after that if they do sign him to a contract extension. If he plays like this, I will continue to maintain that you very well might see him maybe absent of Bobby Wagner, who I think they're going to try to bring back, but even maybe above Bobby Wagner, being the guy that they end up targeting is the most highest priority free agent to bring him back and to retain him, because of the play he is going to be bring on this field, and the decisions that might cause down the line. We'll see where that goes. But love what I saw from Leonard Williams. He brings a lot to the table as a run stuffer, a pass rusher, a guy that can play 1-tech, 3-tech. He can utilize quickness, utilize power. He is a very complete player. And you're getting a guy that we saw last year a little bit with this Chris Jones, who's had a phenomenal career, and who's just been absolutely maybe the most important defensive player for that Kansas City Chiefs over this run, has been the most, undoubtedly. And he had his best year last year. It's like, I mean, by far his best season, even from where he'd been, and 29 years old. Kind of in that pocket spot of where still got those youthful legs, but now got a little bit of that veteran brain that you can apply to things, and you can be pretty dynamic when you're able to put those two together and pair them all the way through. It all kind of comes together. Hopefully he can keep it up. Hopefully the rest of this defense can kind of turn the page off of this rough loss, though some of it, again, goes to offense. I think offense playing better will help this defense to play out better. But I feel very good about his addition. I know we can, to me, it's kind of two separate talks that we have to have on this, on the difficult people that will be a little bit in the upset about the second round pick being given up versus what he's bringing to the table. And I get the whole worry on the second round pick thing, and that you're not happy about doing that, especially for a guy that might be a rent-up player. But we're talking about what he brings and what he's going to bring the rest of the season. He's going to help this team and hopefully maybe eventually help to bring them over the top if things can start to, kind of fit better back into place. I appreciate you guys watching today on the channel. As always, please do me a favor and hit that like button. I want to also thank the sponsor of this show, which will be Underdog Fantasy. You can click the link below down the description section, and they will match you up to $100 on your first deposit. That's $100 on the Hawks Nest from me to you. And they've got a lot of great contests going on here. We might even today walk through and have you guys try to tell me a few picks that maybe I should make. I might have you guys guide me through here on the audience today a little bit before we get done. We do have a bit of a quick show today because I've got a couple of other shows on tap here for today. We got a members only show at 5 and then the B&B show at 8 o'clock. So we'll probably keep this kind of just quick, steady, and easy here a little bit today, but please do hit that like button. I appreciate you guys watching here. If you guys are at work today, I hope you're getting through your work day really fast, and you're almost through. We're almost to the end of the week. You've almost made it. Just keep clicking away. Phoebe Moore Seahawks, how you doing, man? It's good to see you in the house. As I was thinking, Draymond has an out after this year. If he doesn't pan out like we paid for, we can get rid of him, sign D-line, just in D-line in the draft, and just sign Leonard Williams to be the stable of the defensive line. Yeah, I think that there's going to be, and it's a conversation for, as I try to talk about being patient and like waiting to make our determinations on this team, I've got to walk it like I talk it. I feel like on this one, there are going to be defensive players on this team that are going to be looked at very closely. And I'm not going to bring names up quite yet at this moment because I want to wait on this. But the bottom line factor is this: when we worry about the cap space that's available next year, and indeed it's worrisome where the team is at, there is a lot of cap space that can be cleared if we have guys that are not going to perform up to what they're being paid. You don't pay guys for past performance. You pay them for what you're expecting to get on the football field. And there's a couple guys out there that paying a lot of money that you're going, And if Leonard Williams is giving you this kind of performance out there, I think you're right. There's going to be maybe more of a slide this from over here to over there. And I hope everybody just keeps playing, but I want them all to play great. But has been, and unfortunately with Draymond, you're not getting $17.5 million per year worth of play out of him right now. And I know that's just the bottom line of it. Jeffrey says, "Hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Iona? Hey, J.O., what's up? Hello. Nicholas Newton says, somehow I'm at work and catching part of the show, so I'm thankful." Well, thank you for catching the show, man. I appreciate you. Well, Ingrid, I got another 2 hours before I got to go to work. Hang in there, man. You're almost there. Gavin KG, hello. Go Hawks, man. Says, do you think the time difference had a play in this game? The clock was turned back 1 hour, so it was a 4-hour swing for the Hawks. I hadn't thought about the clock being turned back. I kind of thought the clock turning back would help them because it'd kind of give them an extra hour of sleep, Gavin, where it was really 11 o'clock their time rather than 10 o'clock. The other thing with this is that we've done a good job in recent years of solving the 10 a.m. problem Coach Carroll has. And I still think it's really hard. And there's been scientific studies that have shown playing it at that time in the morning is your body's not ready to play at peak athletic performance. But I got to go back to say that at the end of the day, if I'm looking for really a reason you lost that game, I got to give it. We didn't play our best, certainly, but the Ravens are also, I think, just that good. Gavin, they did the same thing to a Midwestern team that was in the NFC that's probably going to go to the playoffs and probably even going to be a division winner out there in Detroit, like a week back behind that. So I think there's just an argument to be made 2 years that the Ravens are just rounding into that good a shape. And, you saw early on in this year, the Niners looked like that juggernaut team that was going to be an unstoppable force. And perhaps now sliding into that role and taking over that hat for at least the time being, and until they don't get as hot, is the Baltimore Ravens. Mala says, do you think plugging Williams into the line created some miscommunication or disruptions purely because of communications between the line? No, I don't think that. They did pretty well to start things off in there, and he was mixed in pretty well even in the early part of things. I didn't see any real places where when the ball carrier went to his side, things got pretty well stopped up. But when went away from him is when there were some issues there. Keeping contain of Lamar Jackson was where there were some issues. Defensive ends on the read option play. This has been a problem recently of just not paying attention to the quarterback at all or accounting for the quarterback. And then he keeps it and he's got a free defensive end crashes down and then he's got a free pathway. The poor tackling out there. Guys doing a lot of, we're going to just put our shoulders in there and try to make it happen stuff, and causing what would be just not a good run play for the defense to turn into a horrific run play. Gap integrity. I don't think that was miscommunication. That's just simply guys not doing their job and taking care of their gap. And the Ravens took some of this to us and how good they are, but we also didn't do our job on the other side of it too. So I didn't see within those anything that I can trace back to miscommunication necessarily. I just think they just didn't play the run with the same kind of fire they've played with it a bit, or commitment. Eric says, I've heard multiple people say that the trade for Leo was wasted due to this loss, but I'm still optimistic. Yeah, I mean, I think that sometimes people look at these trades and they apply kind of just their sort of their personal arbitrary belief to what makes the trade good or what makes the trade bad. And I get the people that will be in the spot of saying the second round pick is just horrible to give that up. You can't give that up for a half season of play. And, I understand that that's going to be worrisome to people, but at the same point in time, I think that it's not as simple as that these things are a lot more complicated than that. To make the rush to make the judgment that it's a failure after one game too is a little bit strange to me, but that's the world we're in now, where everything is so reactionary and has to be so, in the moment of the feeling, and can't just let stuff kind of play out to see where it actually goes, and then we'll make the determination on it. The second round pick hurts. I think sometimes people overvalue these picks too much. I also think that if you wanted to dictate, when they went to the trade deadline, the Seahawks did as a team, and they looked at their team and they felt good about where they were. They know more information from in-house than I do, but if they felt good about where they were in-house, and you look at what they have as far as their situation going into that point, being in first place, being in a wide open conference, if you get to that spot, which you can look inside and say, well, they should have known at 5-2 at the top of the division that they weren't that good. They should have just, still just been like, no, we're not going for it. Because that's what you got to do at that point. I showed a lot of recent examples of this, of if you want to be a Super Bowl team, if you want to be a contending team in the modern era, and I mean the last 4 or 5 years is a given trend that's been pretty stark when you look at it as far as the requirement to these teams that want to be in that mold. You've got to go make a go for it move. You got to reinforce the ranks. And, I guess there's those folks out there that 5-2 went, no, they're just a mirage. It's not that good. And, if they're that and that turns out to be what they are, then congratulations. You saw it far out in advance. But, if they are around that level of that good, this is the requirement of what it costs. You had the second, third round pick, so you still have 7 total picks within this draft. It's not like we're in a situation where a couple of years ago on the heels of the Adams trade where you were down 3 picks coming into a draft. It's nowhere close to that. So the worry about the pick, to me, that's the part people I think get as much caught up of. And then there's, absent them going out and getting the Super Bowl this year, it's just a complete failure of a situation with it. I don't know. I like, instead, from my standpoint on it, I really like seeing my organization try to go forward and make those type of moves. And I think that's the requirement of the modern era. I think we're sitting in town with a Mariner team that's showing a complete unwillingness to make these kind of same aggressive type of moves. And you're seeing what that gets them in the trust the process, just sit and stand pat, patient approach. Doesn't work out all that necessarily great. And I like that this team is doing that, especially a team, too, that has questions for many about, do they just want to be a consistent winner? Do they just want to barely get above 500? Do they just want to take the track of the Mariners' 54% winning style and apply that to themselves? Is that just what they're trying to do? This move was an indication that that's not what they're trying to do. And that hey, fan base, we know you got our back. We know you fill up that stadium every week. We know that you want to see a winner here. We know the standard that's been put in place, and we're going to try to get to achieve that as fast as we humanly possibly can. And I like that in my organization. I appreciated that. I don't think that losing a second-round pick, even if it is for a half-year rental, sinks all hope of this rebuild, sinks all hope of us having a chance of being a winner if we cannot be this year into the long term. But that is where I do hear a little bit of, Eric, that same kind of sentiment out there at times from the way people talk about the trade, and I can't get there myself. Vimy, I would get rid of the Jones and keep Williams for cheaper. I think that's definitely the opening here where we're going to definitely potentially go. And watching the tape this last week with Draymond Jones, it wasn't great. I think he was the, he's 22nd rated player on our defense in this game out of 22 players. So, Draymond Jones keeps putting those kind of performances up at the amount that he's being paid. He's not going to be long for the Hawk world. I want to see him play better. He's capable of playing much better. It's odd that he's, suddenly gone the tank like he is, being a kid just going into his prime. I think he'd be able to give you a little bit more, but it is what it is there. TV1 says, whoa, he's a beast. He is a beast. Eric says, we can do it. We just need the offense to figure things out. I agree, man. I think that's a little bit of we get to the root cause of this stuff. And I think that we get to a spot of then we see other things start to get fixed up a little bit better. Offense gets more consistent in their drives, does a little bit better of a job controlling the time of possession. The defense is kept a little bit fresher. The defense plays better with that. It all starts to sync up and work together along with the offense scoring more points. We win more games. I think it all goes together in that way. I think it is the offense at the head of this that's got to figure its stuff out and figure it out fast. But once they do, I think that we'll see this defense play a lot more fit to form in how they've been the past couple of weeks before they ran into this buzzsaw of a Baltimore Ravens team. Caden says, I didn't even notice the cat. She fits in, man. She's sort of like, just fits in. It's part of her camouflage, part of what protects her in the wild. Feed more Seahawks. If we lose the Commanders, the chat will not be pretty. No, I'm going to be just not able to keep that one on the rails. That will absolutely be dogs and cats living together. It'll be the scene in Event Horizon when they're watching the tape of what happened to the prior crew. It's going to basically be that. And it won't be pretty, but hopefully we can pull the win out on this one. Devion, hopefully these weeks can build some confidence back for Waldron and Gino because we're going to need it to survive the gauntlet of games. Amen. Amen. Well said. Caden says one of Williams' first snaps, he got to Lamar on a bull rush through a double team. Yep. Absolutely. Didn't get the sacks, but yeah, he was able to cause the pressure and the disruption. Eric says just need to do some 6-man blitzes. The 5-mans are definitely not working, as my man Brendan showed out the other day on his channel. Not really pairing together there, those 5-man blitzes. That has been a typical kind of Carroll special. Even go back to past years when he has blitzed, it has been normally just a 5-man. The other thing that subtly has happened here too is the Hawks went from last year being a team like 27th, 28th in their blitz rate. And then this year when things were going really well and cooking, I think they were down to like 12th. In their blitz rate. And now I think we've dropped back down to 24th. So there's also been a little bit of drifting sort of aimlessly then back into sort of your, heavy coverages, heavy zone coverages. DVN says to do this after catching 2 flights in 5 days is insane. Hasn't even had a full week of practice. Hasn't even found a home yet. That's what I'm saying. It's the part that you're right for noting it, DVN, because I think it is the part that the casual fan looks at when a player is traded like this and just says, okay, get in the lineup, go play. Get in there, go ahead and go play. And it's just like, well, it's pretty fantastic. I can come in there and actually have that effect just right out the gate. And yeah, defensive line's an easy onboarding position overall. But like I mentioned earlier, it's your defensive line doesn't merely 1 or 2 gap. You gap and a half, which is pretty much the most complicated kind of technique you can ask a defensive lineman to play. because you're asking him to play both, essentially. So I was really impressed by it as well. It's great of noting that part, I think. Gaines is definitely, and some fake blitzes let Jamal find the hole in the line of scrimmage. Fake blitzes are great too. I mean, that's as much as big a part of this as the blitz part is, as the Baltimore Ravens showed. I was talking about last night with Brendan on this. Yeah, man, just give me some more stack fronts. The Ravens and what they did was not just simply bringing blitzes. It wasn't as simplistic as, here, we're just going to send the house at you. It was that we're going to send these stack fronts up at the line of scrimmage and confuse the hell out of your offensive line, your protections, and your quarterback with it. And the Ravens were able to accomplish that. Hawks don't do very much of that. And it's a little bit on both sides of the ball, of the missing part on both sides of the ball here. And that is the pre-snap confusion teams create on both sides of the ball. Offensively, you do it with pre-snap motion that can go to post-snap motion. And on defense, you can do it with some of these stack fronts and then dropping them out, But the Ravens showed you a masterclass on how to do it if you're looking to try to find something you can copy. Devian says he's playing for that payday. Yeah, he's going to be pretty hungry. I imagine he's played the hair on fire kind of style. Aaron says for free, but second and a fifth ain't free, and you got to pay him next year. For free? Yeah, no, it's definitely not for free. He's going to cost some money, that's for sure. And the second, the future fifth is definitely a lot of draft capital. I'm not going to push back and say that's not what it is with that. It is. The thing I will say on this, in doing and tracking this team the past couple of years and looking at the defensive linemen that have been out there and available for them to go and try to grab, the thing that stands out to me on this, Aaron, is that it's very hard to go find defensive linemen and quality defensive linemen at that. And so you're really not finding them on the free agent market. They're being re-signed in droves by their own teams across the NFL. You're not seeing necessarily a lot of talent stacked up in these drafts at the defensive line either in recent years. And so this has left things a little bit thin when it comes to guys that can actually have an impact out there. And so you could say, well, we'll just go get a second round defensive tackle in this draft, but that's not necessarily a guarantee you're getting a guy that's going to bring the level of impact of a guy like Leonard Williams, who is a former top 10 first round pick and still at times really playing like that guy, as I've shown in those clips at the top. That's where I think why this cost comes into play where it is that we talk about positional value being, decreased in certain areas like running backs or at times middle linebacker has been in the past, but other positions have been bumped up with that, and their importance has started to carry higher and bigger weight more than ever. I would argue the defensive line is within that, and that if you're not going to get him here, where is the guy you're going to go get at that point? You're not going to sign a guy off the free agent market. There's only really a DJ Reader that's going to be available out there. There's a lot of teams with a ton of cap space to spend this offseason. Hawks are not going to be able to stand dollar for dollar, bet for bet on that blackjack table for a free agent guy out there. And who's the tradable asset defensive lineman that you can go get then at that point that you're going to go get if you're doing it at that point? Who's going to be made available? I don't see where there's that. That's a little bit of part of this that we've got to take into account to me is we're going to need defensive line help. We don't have any real long-term answers in there outside of maybe Cam Young that we're still not sure of, and Mike Morris, who's been injured all year. But as good as Mario Edwards has been and as pretty good as Jaron Reed has been, though he's been dipping down recently, you still don't have anything set there in the long-term future either. And so this guy plays like this and you sign him to a 3-year deal. I think it's money well spent at that point. Money you would have spent on somebody else on that defensive line who's probably wouldn't be as good as him. Take a look at Draymond Jones, for instance. And I think that's where I come to on why I still support this trade and think it's still the good trade is that I expect them to re-sign him. I expect them to make a hard run at him. And I think he's going to want to probably remain here. By all accounts, it sounds like the Pacific Northwest is going to suit this guy's personality and style quite succinctly. But Aaron, I don't want to seem like I'm pushing too hard on this because I do get that it is a maximum amount of draft capital to give up for a guy in a rental moment, But as I said at the top, I've got some other reasons too, and beyond just thinking he's a long-term part of this future, also liking to see my team in these moments really go for it, not just sort of sit in their mode and go, no, we're good enough, we're fine. We're going to just wait for it all to slow cook. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate you for that, Garth. It says, Big Cat is a creature of the night. The Orange Cat signed off on the transaction, and that's all I care to know. Yeah, I mean, all you got to do is just say, watch this, man. I mean, this is all I got to do, Garth. And thank you for the $5 dono. All I got to do is like, you like the big cat? Hey, you like the big cat? See, that's a yes. That's a definite yes right there. She's a big cat believer, Garth. She is. Very pro Williams. Thank you though, man. I don't know. DVN says the offense is going to have to fix itself. There's nothing that can be invested in right now to fix it, sadly. That's going to be an off-season fix. Yeah, there's nothing else to invest in it. They've got to play better. Abraham Lucas looking like maybe he's getting closer and closer to returning. Should hopefully help. But at the end of the day, the bottom line on this is the offense has got to just play better. They've got too much talent not to play better. And if it doesn't, there's going to be some call to accounts. Gaten, offense with a game against the Lions, but I'm sure what it is, but we got to fix the offense. We're all in agreement today. Rare moments of the Hawks Nest being in full agreement. Even our defense is like a 6'5", a black athletic guy that somehow sucks at basketball. Gaten, Waldron had shown some creativity in exiting offensive, and we've done good with a bad offensive, all backups at one point, but Waldron's got to get together. Got to get together. I think it's fair to say. I'm in the same boat. Holy Hand Grenade says, what if we're better with a bad O-line? I can't see that being the case. There's a lot of things in football that don't always make sense, but that one's just a little bit too much. Eric says, thanks for this informative video and really encouraging for our defense. My pleasure, Eric. I did want to get a little bit of a view on this week and catch this up because I thought it was worth noting. And I know a lot of Hawk fans feel a little bit down in the dumps this week after this last game, and rightfully so. I am with you guys on that one, but maybe a little bit of a, little beam of light cracking through the darkness of the room that you find yourself in, potentially. Defense plays more Geno Smith because DVN was... maybe Waldron just doesn't do well with talent. He's better doing improvise-wise. We need to get back to 13 personnel, which plays to Geno's strengths because Geno can throw it, but not a deep ball, Y route guy. If we wanted, we could have kept Russ. Geno's a great window, throws right down the middle and pre-snap adjustments. Yeah, he's not as much of a 9 thrower as Russ at all. It's not really, Geno's definitely very hit or miss on his deeper throws. He's very accurate on his short, intermediate stuff. And even almost just, super deep stuff that's not quite a 9 route. He can put it on a spot, but for whatever reason, those deep throws especially they start to kind of sail on him out of bounds, or he can't quite get the timing of it synced up. But that is definitely part of what you get with him. And we may have to go back to the 12, 13 personnel. The thing with Waldron on this is, if you're going to, like you say on that DVN, to an offensive coordinator saying, well, maybe he's just not as good with all the extra talent. That's kind of an indictment on the offensive coordinator at that point, where you go, okay, but that shouldn't be an issue for you. This should be actually a good thing for you to work with, not a thing holding you back. Greg says, funny enough, Hawks asked players during training camp, who's your starting 5? And DK was on everybody's team, and he played basketball in high school. He can ball. We've seen him do it. He can dunk, and not surprisingly, dunk and do all that stuff. Mala says, isn't Geno like 3 in the league with the play action? Yeah, he's been great on the play action. The weird thing is the Hawks just don't run a whole hell of a lot of it. And I don't know why. Mr. Alla, we just played the 2 best defense in the NFL back to back with a makeshift offensive line. That is brutal. Yeah, it's not easy doing that. It's not going to be easy. Hopefully things feel a lot easier for the offense after going through what they've done the past couple of weeks with that, like you say. It's a great point, Mr. Alla. Don, how you doing? It's good to see you in the chat. Greg says the picks Geno's throwing right now are bad, but I want to know what's making him throw balls into the dirt when throwing to DK. I think it's like the Angels in the Outfield movie, Greg. I think DK's done something in the offseason, and he's got some bad mojo working right now, a bad moon rising. And, there's the spirits are knocking down Geno's balls when they go into DK's direction. And I don't know what he did to piss off the spirits, but DK needs to make a, what is it? It's not nice to say sacrifice, but maybe a little totem or something, I don't know. It's getting desperate. Eric says, thank you for reading my comment. Eric, thank you for watching, brother. I appreciate you checking out the channel and showing your support in that way, man. So appreciate you for that. And anytime. I love chopping up with y'all. Kids, yeah, they talked about that. For some reason, Geno throws weird to DK, just throws the ball differently than you see Geno throw to Lockett. It looks smooth. Yeah, I don't know, have an explanation for it. Because you throw into a bigger target, you think would make it easier. It's like if you're shooting a basket, and you're in the 3-point arc and you're trying to hit a basket, and that basket's normal size, it's hard to hit. But if the basket's double the size, it should be easier to make the shot, not harder. But for some reason, he sees that big DK basket and throws it out of bounds. Garth, thank you for another $5 donation. Says, Leonard Big Cat Williams was worth a second and a fifth, according to Giants fans. Just kidding, Brando. It's fair. It's fair. And if I'm a Giants fan, I feel good about it. I think in trades, we're always looking for the winner and the loser. I think this might be one that we end up looking at and saying win-win. It's to me a reminder trade of a guy like Dwayne Brown, where when you made the move for Dwayne Brown, you had to give up a lot for that. Remember that? We had to give up a second and a third round pick for him, a guy that was becoming a very much elder statesman left tackle in the sport, but the necessity was there. And you brought him in, and he was able to settle everything down on that offensive line with his presence at that time. And yeah, it was a lot to give up, but you did get the returns for it. You're perfectly happy with that trade in retrospect, even though you had to give up what you had to give up to bring him in. And I'm going to make the big, bold prediction here too, Garth, that the Seahawks fans are going to feel the very same way about this Leonard Williams trade down the line. Mr. All says, we have so many first and second year guys playing major snaps. Our team is still rounding into what it will be eventually. Yeah, Mr. Allo, I don't think people necessarily love me mentioning this, and especially the fact I mention it often. But I'm mentioning it for a purpose and a reason, and it's to your point on this, which is that you are the third youngest roster in the NFL. You are the third youngest roster in the NFL, at least coming into this season. I know with Jason Peters, you've added some age and all that. Well, now that Jason Peters is on, we're actually the 10th. I'm like, okay. But it really is that in the view of it. They are that young of a team. And with a young team, inconsistency, with a young team, it's going to take some time to round into their biggest, boldest, best shape. And I know fans are chomping at the bit on this. I've got a theory that the chomping at the bit is less about the players not developing and more about it's been 10 years since we've been in a conference championship. Come on, Pete. And that's what's driving a lot of this impatience. But you're right, Mr. Allo, patience is what's called for here. Caden says, I think the play call on DK is not the best routes against man. We got to set up plays with play action and motions, and that motion crosser he does. I'd love to see it too. You should be able to find a way with a guy like this to get him some targets, get him some manufactured touches. DK is on pace for about 100 targets this year, 106 to be precise. That's what he projects to go to. That's not that very many targets for what should be a number one wide receiver. That's less to me of an indictment on DK and more of an indictment on Geno and the offensive coordinator not finding their way to him, especially when you consider how many of those targets have been misthrown errant balls by Geno. Gar, thank you again for that double dono, brother. Appreciate you on that. Flag Sabbath, how you doing? It's good to see you in the house. Greg says, I haven't seen anybody question Geno or Pete why he's throwing the ball in the dirt to DK all of a sudden either. Yeah, I don't get it. So weird. Ethan, hey, what's up, 12s? What's up, Ethan? I'll be listening in the background. No school tomorrow. Let's go. Go Hawks. Congrats on the no school, man. Early weekend. Devian says, as long as we go 10-7, I'll be satisfied. We can target weaknesses this off season. I'll feel okay about that too, Devian. I like Mr. All was talking about. It's not what a lot of people want, because there's some people that want me to be bringing the fire and brimstone down upon the general manager and front office, and I'm not ready to even get in the vicinity of getting there. But I still look at that as a progress. Progress made. Moving in the right direction. There will be things to fix at that point, but overall moving in the right direction. Brian Stewart, what is up, my man? How you doing? It says, hey, B, quick request. Please consider add CC closed captions. That way we can read you if we stream you in gym public place when volume isn't available. Go Hawks. Use tight ends Sunday, please. Sunday, please. Sunday, please. Absolutely, Brian. I got to see where the setting is. I wasn't even aware of there being the setting that they've added to that. So I will absolutely, let me see if I can see it right here. Closed captioning. This AI stuff's getting next level, man. That's probably on the initial settings somewhere. But yes, let me look next time I go live tonight, actually. I'll try to see if I can find where the setting is, and I will add those for sure. Great recommendation, Brian. Thank you for that, man. I didn't even know. Caden says, we need Draymond, more tackles and guards. We should run more D-line stunts and play coverage. We did that some against the Giants. Another reason that we had so many sacks, but they're also just the Giants. No, I think you're right, Caden. I think you did something against the Giants you haven't done kind of against other teams that much. And it had a lot of success. And I'm surprised that they're not willing to go more to it with the success they've had. They do this sometimes, or they'll have success with something, a particular certain thing, and then they'll just sort of run away from it for a few games for no good reason. I don't know why, but that is what I saw as well. There's other games where you've been a lot more creative and you've had so much more success with it. They weren't very creative this last week at all. Garza's Event Horizon's crazy. That was crazy. Disturbing film. Disturbing. Greg says DK is actually good against man coverage, especially press man, but rarely gets it. It's really good against single high. Yeah, he doesn't get it very often. And he's been a great man beater over the course of his career. I think probably his numbers will still be good, to your point on that, this year again. Devian says Eagles are so dominant this year, we don't have to worry about San Francisco getting another ring. Well, I got to see how Chase Young fits in with them and how the Eagles' health holds up. I think they just had, for instance, their middle linebackers got a Liz Frank injury. So we'll see how they can maintain over this year, but that is a part of this puzzle too. Eric says, I know this isn't a popular thought process, but I often wondered why quarterbacks like other positions. I've often wondered why quarterbacks aren't like other positions. If it's not their day, why not try your backup and then let the starter try again next week? This comes down to, I believe, Eric, a little bit of why Coach Carroll indicated about not being even in the vicinity of being willing to make a change at the QB position at this time. There's more to be done here than, if you're in Madden, for instance, and you flip out quarterbacks, there's no detrimental effect that goes on to you at that point. If you have a better backup, you go to it and you can go out there and just play. And if he's better, he's better. On a football field, I think there's other factors involved. Chemistry, leadership. The quarterback is the steward of your team. Your starting quarterback is supposed to be an outlet of the head coach. Not the starting quarterback and the backup are an outlet of the head coach. The starting quarterback is an outlet of the head coach. And so when you make those changes back and forth, you're not giving the team an indication of a certain ground in the guy that's leadership. When the backup quarterback's barking at you because he's come in the game, do I really need to listen to him? Or is it just going to be another couple series until he leaves the field and the starter comes back on here? And so it's one of those things that's good in theory, but if you were to actually play it out and how it would play on the field, that's why we don't see it utilized by teams, even just to a small degree. Or you had, for instance, the Titans. You had the Titans, for instance, a couple weeks ago when Levis and Willis were going to be determined as going back and forth as starters, right? Like they were going to try to flip them in and out a bit during the game and do your very thing you're talking about. Second, Levis started to take off. It was like, we're throwing that plan out. Because coaches are always going to want to come back to this spot of saying, no, let's in actuality, let's stick with our one guy and let him emerge and let him become the leader in the locker room. And you really need, that's a real necessary part, I think, in building a team that can hopefully be great or a contender. Brian Myers in the house. What's up, Brian? How you doing? Good to see you. Jabriel. Sorry, one second. Let me find it here. Jabriel. Jabriel Slater. I'm all for going for it, but seeing how Geno's been playing and looking at a decade of past Super Bowl history, it's led by elite quarterbacks or elite defense. And sad to say, we don't have both. What could change that? So when we look at the past 10 years of Super Bowls, elite quarterback or elite defense, I think that's a fair way of putting it. I do. I think Jabriel, the defense is taking steps towards potentially getting to a spot where they can maybe make this defense elite. I know they didn't play this past Sunday that way, but it is a very young team and where it's going on that. Yeah, I think there's also a little bit of a tough thing with the past 10 years when we look at it, because we have two real exceptional outliers that have existed over that 10-year period that have eaten up a lot of those Super Bowl wins. One being Tom Brady, the other being Patrick Mahomes. We might be looking at two of the literal best quarterbacks to ever play the sport. One is for sure that as he retires, and one seems to be very well on his way there. So when we take that 10-year metric of it takes elite quarterback play to get there, the only issue I have with that a little bit, Jabriel, is that that's also not factoring into account how hard it is to find not just generational quarterbacks, but guys that are the best all time at their position. And if that's what we got to put in our crosshairs of the necessity to have to find, then let's go build the defense. You know what I'm saying? let's make that elite defense thing happen, because I don't think you're going to find that guy to that degree. And that's where I think that there's a lot of pathways necessarily to winning a Super Bowl. There's been recently pathways that teams have taken and embarked upon that have gotten them there. But I think that you can also get there by building a really great team as well. And, as elite as that Super Bowl winning team was for the Seahawks, it was also a team that had a playmaker in Russell Wilson. It also had invested the most in its offensive line. It also had a really good special teams unit, including just Percy Harvin and what he brought as a returner. Like, it was a team as well of having that elite defense. And when I come down to Super Bowl winners over the past 10 years, yeah, elite quarterbacks are a common component of it. I'll give you that. But another common component of it have been very complete football teams. Teams that can do a lot of things, not just lean to one thing on what they are. So, when it comes to, for instance, like the pick, I just, that's where I think the team looks at it and views it in that same way, I would argue. But you're not wrong. Recent history has been that has been the necessity. And I'm a guy that's a big proponent in, paying attention to recent history. But when I think about it in that way, that's the only issue I've come away when I think about it like that is, okay, so we've got to get an elite, not just an elite quarterback if we're thinking about it. It's a Tom Brady or a Patrick Mahomes, because, we remove those guys and we've got an elder Peyton Manning who can't throw it past 25 yards and a Brock Osweiler winning a Super Bowl. We've got a second-year Russell Wilson winning a Super Bowl. We've got a Nick Foles with the Eagles coming in as a backup, just suddenly getting hot, that no one would say was an elite quarterback at any given time, winning a Super Bowl. And that was without an elite defense on that one. And so there are, I think, different ways. We just happen to have been in a recent era here to me where we've got these quarterbacks doing what they're doing, and they're two of the special cats to ever do it. Oh, Angry, there's something we have to ask about that number 2 pick we traded. How do we know the pick won't be a bust if we used it in the draft? At least we know we're getting a proven player. That's right. Yeah. And there's a risk involved to it. There's a risk with any move, any trade you make. There's a risk with any pick you pick. It's a great point, Hello Hand Grenade. Caden says, why can't I type? Dina, not going to lie, that's just a coping medicine. They haven't really messed as of late with drafts. They haven't, but I think it's a valid thing to say on this. We don't know necessarily that guy's going to be a certainty either. It's an either. It's not a thing. That's I think what you're just trying is we don't know it's going to be a good pick, which is what people talk about. You give up the second round pick and you're giving up a certainty of a cheap club control player you'll have for 3 years who will absolutely be really good. But while the club has had some good recent history with these second round picks, it doesn't necessarily mean that overall, over the last 10 years, let's say, they've had just a ton of great history of second round picks. They've had some goods, they've had some misses. And that does tend to align with the league-wide trend when it comes to picks in those departments of things. But there's a bit of an unknown there too with that. MJ Seahawk, do you think we'll extend Williams? Is Noah Fan gone after this year? Yes. I think yes and yes. Williams will be re-signed. I don't think that they're going to want to repay Fan. I don't think Fan's going to necessarily, at this point, necessarily want to stay here. He's not being featured very much in this offense over the past couple of years. He gets forgotten about at times. He is terribly efficient when you do throw him the football. He's done his job as a blocker. I think there might be a place that he wants to go to get a little bit more and be featured a little bit more, and I can't blame him for that at that point. Brian says, can't worry too much about the second now because John S. can work his magic and we can still have one. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up finding ourselves back in the second round somehow, some way in this upcoming draft. To your point on that, Brian. Ray says, I want to see Brown, Olu, and Bradford on the line. I don't think Brown will be very good at left guard for us. I don't know. I'm reticent on that. That's also straight from his mouth. He says he's a better center than a guard. I believe that's how it is there. Garth, thank you for another $10 donation. I do appreciate you for that. It says, did DK sleep with Gino's lover like supposedly Golden Tate did with Russ's? I always thought Russ wasn't interested in gals too much. If number 3's preference is fellas, it wouldn't suck to know he's closeted. I think Russ is very much a heterosexual male. No, and I think, Garth, you're referring, there was that weird rumor that was posted out on Twitter that got a few Seahawks fans caught up into it last night. I was seeing where somebody posted that one of these parody accounts on Twitter posting that DK had punched Gino, but it is completely, and thank you for bringing it up, Garth, because I do want to make sure we let that out and know to the audience. It's completely untrue. It did not happen. Somebody out there is having a little bit of fun. So, you know how we are. We're in the troll world now. But no, that did not occur. Thank you for the $10 donation. And Golden Tate was pretty vehement, Garth, when he was asked about it on KJ's show, that did not occur, that he did not touch Russ's lady. I'll take the man at his word. Take him at his word. Appreciate you, Garth. Megan Gokroger, my lady from Danenda. Thank you for the $20 donation. I appreciate you, and it's great to see you in the chat today, Megan. Says, greetings, B and 12s. Just woke up, and Williams was just as I believed him to be after years of watching him. Kind of feel that this was a waste, but I'm trying to stay positive and keep an open mind. But I am hopeful. Well, I like the hope. Even I know how hard it can be where you feel like you got a gut instinct, something's going in a certain direction, and it's maybe not or wasn't a good choice, a good decision, but you can still find some optimism in it. I think that's great. And I'm hopeful as well. No doubt about that. I like what I saw from him this past week. I do feel good about what we're getting from him right now, Megan. He's going to help out this defensive line. And if we didn't have him, I'll say this as well. If we didn't have Williams, the season would be kaput. So that's the one part of this to consider too, is the no Williams. And is it a move to go for now? Is it a move not to? If you don't have Williams on this line with where Draymond Jones is playing, where Jaron Reed is starting to fall back to, Mario Edwards is kind of hanging in there a little bit. But if that's what you're going to be dealing with the rest of the year with the murderer's row of teams that we do have to play coming up, I don't think it's going to happen at that point. That's not a team that's going to round into anywhere near Super Bowl shape. And this team might not either on the other end of it. But at least now maybe you got a chance, you know? At least there is an opportunity here for things to kind of, round into that way, where I do think that what we would have seen if the year went along with just what we have on this line going through the rest of this year, Megan, I think you just would have seen them slower and slower get wore down, injuries pile up, weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker, and then, eventually becomes what we were worried it was going to be at the start of this year when we came into the year, the greatest weakness on your defense as it was last year, and now you just suddenly can't stop anybody in the run game. I think that would have been a real fear for this year, and I'm glad at the very least this does preserve the potential for the season, I think, by maybe making this move a bit. But we'll see. It'll be interesting to watch how it plays out, Megan. And, I'll give you props if you are proven right on this one where it wasn't the right move, or if the others were. You're not alone on this one. Thank you for the donation, though. Michael says, thank you. Michael Crohor Chavez. How you doing, Michael? Young is good. Growth is a good. We We have seen it before. It turns into a fantastic new era with no new money to send for $80 million to a 4-year run. Fresh set of new team on boom time. That's it. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, man. I was referring to rookie quarterback. 85 was played to Russ Wilson for 4 years. Thanks. Indeed, Wilson got that big monster deal. Young, cheap quarterback. They're going to go get it. Me and Brendan were chopping it up last night talking about the prospects in this upcoming draft, and we both do look at it like there's going to be a plethora of guys from the second to the fourth round that you can kind of take your pick through. And if they want to target one guy that they just kind of fall head over heels for in particular, you can go get that guy, Michael. And they would be pretty cheap and might be pretty good right out the gate with some of the film that they put up here in college. Michael Slicker, does Drew Lock seems to have a good chemistry if Geno keeps this up? Would you rather have Drew for $4 million or Geno for however much he's making? It's very hard to make an assessment of Drew Lock for me. And I do lean back a little bit when I don't have tape to fall on of a guy, when I really can't go into all 22 and see what they're playing. Or I've only gotten recent all 22 that's been a bit of a mixed bag, as has been the case for me with Drew Lock when I've gone back to watch his recent tape. I'm not as number one convinced that he is at Geno Smith's level. Number two, I'm not as convinced that the coaching staff believes that he's at Geno's level. And so I look at that and I go, I don't know. I don't know where I see Drew at right now. He's got a lot of potential, and that potential can round into shape, and he can be a lot better player than he was at Denver. But I'm unsure on that one with Drew. I really am unsure on that one. I have to fall back on what the coaches have seen on the practice field first and foremost, because I feel like I'm just making a guess with him. I've seen just a smattering of snaps over the course of the last 2 years since he's come to Seattle. He had his first preseason cut down pretty heavily short. He had the horrible Cowboys game. The Packers game had some good throws, some throws that left a lot to be desired. And then you didn't get, I think he was, you didn't get a whole lot of it outside of that. So I think the team, Michael's got to make a choice. You're right about the fact they got to make a decision on Drew or Geno or Geno or whatever after this year, because you can get from out from under the contract. You can save a lot of money if you determine that he is a restricting factor to the team instead of allowing for this offense to take flight a bit. Part of why I think it's important for us to have this full year of information to make that determination, because you want to be sure about it. But if the team really loves Drew and they feel like Drew Lock is right with Geno or a half a step behind Geno, and Michael, this is the key on the part of this. If you feel that way or if they feel that way, then it's an easy decision. If Geno plays out the rest of the year, he's playing out like this, and you can bring back a Drew for probably what would be $5 million in incentives, then as a team, you would go and make that move and draft your second round quarterback if you think they're that close together. Why else pay 3-4 times the amount for Geno Smith if you think if they feel like he is so close to Drew Lock? When you get something for a fourth of the cost that's giving you 95% of the performance, you'd think that'd be a pretty easy call for the front office at that point. Greg says Hawks might have to target a right tackle in free agency or late in the draft for insurance on Lucas. Knee problem, since it seems it won't go away. Another one of those things that behind closed doors, they know the tale on this one. And if the tale tells that, Greg, you're right. It becomes kind of a necessity. One of the nice things is there are guys in this draft that do have a right tackle background in college, but who look like they would kick inside at the pro level. Maybe we can, look at one of the, like a Graham Barton type. You could look to target out in this draft, and, he can be a bit of that insurance while also locking down the left guard position, let's say, until you can kind of figure things out there with Lucas. But I'm worried about his knee, Greg. I think it's a valid concern here. And there's a part of me wonders if there's not a bit of maybe a chronic situation going on there. Alan, how you doing, man? It's good to see you in the chat. Eric, what you said about switching quarterbacks makes sense when you put it that way. I guess I was viewing it from a military standpoint where leaders are interchangeable. Yeah, it's, I think, just a little bit of the oddity you get, Eric, with the quarterback position in particular in sports, because there's just no other position really like it. A goalie in hockey ain't like that. A point guard is kind of like that. A pitcher's not like that in baseball. It is its own unique position. And there's so much, I think, that does go into your voice in the locker room and when you speak and people listening to you. And when you do flip those things out, how you do start to get people now going, well, maybe I don't have to listen to you. You're going to only be here for a second, and you want to have that backing of the coach so your voice remains strong. And when you do speak, guys are listening, because the quarterback's going to tend to know what the guys are supposed to be doing, the right path they're going to be going. Fleece the Max says Leonard Williams is a beast. Yes, he is. Big time beast. And Garth and Megan, thank you so much for your donations on the channel. Appreciate all your support here. You guys are awesome. Michael Hulsicker, this is Drew Loco, new nickname. Drew Loco might be the new nickname. That misspelling might have to stick. It's Drew Loco time. I need a Loco margarita. Megan says, I kind of feel like this is a case of told you so without saying told you so. Williams going to that, I kept an eye on him since the USD. So Megan, let me know, because I played 11 cuts at the top of the show. I showed his PFF scores. He was your best rated defensive lineman in this game. He posted a 69 score, and if you take our top 3 defensive linemen that have eaten up snaps this year, Mario Edwards, Jaron Reed, and Draymond Jones, through all of their games this year, they've only had 4 collective performances that have gone above that 69 grade he posted in this game, to put it in perspective. So you've got 1 game this year from Jaron Reed where he's been above 69. 1 game with Draymond Jones where he's been above 69. 2 games with Mario Edwards Jr. where he's been above 69. Otherwise, they've been below that, and sometimes far below that. So I don't know if you can elaborate what you mean by like the told you so. He played really good football, and he just got here. Like, he just got off the plane. He literally arrived last week. He doesn't even know the playbook, and he was your best defensive lineman. I don't know if that's the told you so point. I think this is more of, this is what I was hoping we would get. Alan says, I would like to see a little bit more of Cody Parkinson get more touches at the tight end position. I'd like to see Alan, all the tight ends getting touches, more touches at the tight end position. It's everybody had 1 target this last week. They just have completely forgotten their tight ends at times. Fleece Mac, I bet Lucas comes back. Gino is going to get this offense going again. I love it, man. It's certainly going to look a lot better, I would say. Gabriel says, I agree with what you say. I believe we are that 1 quarterback away from making that legit Super Bowl run. I say John and Pete need to move up for one of the top 3 quarterbacks. I'm not going to poo-poo it down, Gabriel. If they want to trade up and target one of these guys, I do kind of trust a little bit in John Schneider's ability to target quarterbacks. This is the man that found Russell Wilson. This was the man that was at the pro days of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen when he had Russell Wilson, even at that time. I think even a guy that they put their faith in, Gino, to get a comeback player of the year award from a guy in year 1 of a rebuild, in their willingness to back him. I think that they understand pretty good right now what they want to get from the quarterback position and what they're looking for. And so if they choose to want to jump up in this draft and target a guy that they really fall in love with, and they go, no, we know this will be the guy. You put a complete or enough roster together now that you can take the opportunity to do that. And I'm good with it. One thing I like about moving up for quarterbacks, if you're going to choose to do it, is you do it as a finishing piece, not as a beginning piece. You don't start with a team in the dredge, with a whole bunch of second-hand parts and be like, all right, let's go get our star quarterback and hope he can fix everything. No. Instead, you build up the supporting cast around him and give him the opportunity to really flourish once he is going to be able to then take whoever you're going to look to then put behind that crew. And I think that could be very helpful. So I'm with it, Jabril. Definitely I'm with it. D-Zilla Hawk. What's up, D-Zilla? Good to see you in the house, man. Says, I think we should consider bringing in Adrian Peterson as a running back coach. Remember when we brought him in a few years ago and our run game got so much better? I do. Yeah, he was the guy that really felt like whatever he told Rashad Penny or whatever he was doing in his ear seemed to have, gotten him to that next level that year as far as how he was running with the ball, just almost a different player than what we had seen prior to that. I'm 100% with it, D-Zilla. The one thing you always got to wonder with this, though, is when you got a player like that who made a lot of money over his career, and when you hear like KJ Wright talking about the coaching grind and like just listen to KJ, he's absolutely just fascinated by the thought process of coaching, but then you feel him push down on the brakes and go, yeah, but those hours. And that's the thing with it is when you coach, you can't just come in for a couple hours here, a couple hours there. It's that real long dedication you got to put into it. And you got a guy that's got $50 million in the bank. It's probably hard to tell that guy, go work some 12-hour days as a coach. I think it's probably a tough sell. Megan says, if we hadn't given up the second round pick B, what do you think we would have been looking for with it? Quarterback's a possibility. Defensive lineman or linebacker would have probably been about the value spot at that point for where we would have been picking with, I would say. Greg says, I saw reporters say Hawks wanted Williamson's draft and even wanted him during training camp, but I can't remember who said it, though. I think I remember hearing something about that, too. Carol Stead said this guy we've been monitoring for a long period of time, which would be kind of an indication of that. Yeah, I think that this is they've definitely seen this as a guy that, hey, here we go. I mean, look, Greg, we were talking about this guy going back to training camp. We were saying that this was a move you could kind of see coming without even knowing that the team was interested in him. You could kind of see why this move would eventually come together. The lack of options available on the open market. There is no DeForest Buckner being offered out there. There's no Derek Brown being offered out there. When the Washington football team decided to move on from their defensive line, it wasn't they moved on from Jonathan Allen or LaRon Payne. They moved on from their two edges. These guys are becoming really valuable and really hard to get. And you did see with this Giants team and the way that they're not giving up on Williams here because they don't like him as a player or that he's still a really good player. They're giving up on him because they're recognizing they might have to fire their coach. They might have to turn over this team. They might need assets that they have to put together to go get the quarterback they want to go get. To start to turn this around because Jones doesn't look like the answer. I mean, they might be a little bit back closer to getting back in a rebuild mode than really being in a go-for mode if I'm the New York Giants right now. So, yeah, I can see why they would have looked at him for a long period of time. There's not a lot of options that fit into even this tier 2 camp of defensive linemen out there. It may seem like they're a dime of the dozen, but they're not. And they're really hard to find. And they're becoming more valuable by the seemingly day. But, yeah. I can get why they go for him, and he's a good player. King says, Big Cat, Leo was definitely as advertised. Even for not playing in our defense, he did look like he's the best player next to Boye Mafe. Mafe is truly taking the next step. Yes, he is. Well said, King. Well said. Hey, Brandon, early stream, love it. Yeah, I was going to promise you guys we get some bonus streams in this year during the season. I got to be a man of my word. Fleet says, I wonder if we were going to sign Frank Clark again. Okay. Fleet says, I wonder how the D-line is going to look with Nwosu, Mafe, and we added Leonard Williams. That's a scary line. You're starting to put something together with that crew. That's for sure. I can work with that. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation. Appreciate you for all the donos, brother. Says, I need Caleb Little Cat Williams to be a Las Vegas Raider so Penix isn't. Yeah, it looks like, well, hell, I mean, who is it right now who's in the lead for the sweepstakes, Garth? For the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. Who's the front runner on this one right now? Let me take a look at this. You got the Panthers and the Cardinals. Cardinals are getting Kyler Murray back, though. They might carve themselves out a win. They play the Bears still. They play the Texans. They might have themselves still a win or two in there, the Cardinals. They're going to mess up the tank. Cardinals are going to mess up the tank. Boy, it might very well be the Bears sitting there. Bears might be sitting there ready to grab him. Giants too, though. Giants got Tommy DeVito going the rest of the year. I don't think the Raiders got that energy going now, Garth, too. Like, they got that win now that the coach is out of town. Like, Josh Daniel seemed like that was a complete Acme weight lifted off the shoulders of the Raider locker room. I think they're happy to be. They'll get a couple more wins now, that Raiders team this year. So I don't think he's going there. Penix might very well be your Raider. I mean, Garth, I know it's maybe a fear, but you might be onto something with that, man. I think you're probably about right. And I pray for Michael Penix if he goes to the Raiders. That kid's going to get demolished if he goes there. Fleet says, I wonder how this D-line is going to look with Nwosu and Boye and added with Leonard Williams. Scary line. Oh, sorry, I read that. Absolutely. Megan says, how many of Geno's issues are coming from the fact that his contract is incentive-based and he's pushing for the incentives? It's hard for me to guess the pushing for incentives things, Megan. I mean, like the interception, for instance, on Lockett, sometimes we learn about these things after the game that we get a little bit more details on it, where Lockett didn't hear the side adjustment that he was supposed to make there on that play in the huddle. He just missed the call. Happens sometimes. A lot like we have the DK Metcalf post route where he just stops running on the post route. Or the near interception to JSN to the Browns last week where, JSN's supposed to sit down on the route. He's supposed to keep going, but he sits down on the route instead. All of these have been confirmed by the coaching staff as being not on Geno Smith. But if you ask the average Seahawks fan, Megan, they'd be like, oh, that's on Geno. I don't know if I see a lot of that. I think it's just necessarily he's not dealing with the pressure well. Offensive coordinator Waldron hasn't called a good game plan. He doesn't have a running game to go back on. I think you put all of that together and it's contributing to how he's playing more than I can go to incentives, which that's more of I'd have to be in his brain to know that he's thinking like that. Or we'd have to have kind of maybe a sound bite that would indicate that that's what, he's factoring in. And I think that's hard to factor that stuff in as a quarterback and play the position that way with that pushing you like that, I think. But it's hard. That's kind of who knows on that one a little bit. King says, Jaron Reed is literally changing his entire game and still exceeding expectations, in my opinion. Yeah, he's fine for what he's bringing. We thought, we weren't expecting, or when he signed, we were hoping we were going to have to lean on him, I think, as heavily as we had to lean on him early on in the year. That's part of the reason you make the trade with Leonard is to probably kind of move these rotations through a little more cleaner. But he's been fine. Yeah, he's been good. Maybe I'm calling it. Boye Mafe is going to have a defensive player of the year next year. He's going to have 15 plus sacks and 20 plus pressures. Ooh, I'll remember you called it, man. Jordan says, I feel like the run defense got bad due to the amount of time the defense was on the field. Agreed. The Ravens weren't running the ball with much success early on. Agreed. I don't think our run defense will be amazing all year, but it should be above average to good with Williams. Agreed, Jordan. All the way down the line on that one. So, I parse it more to that. It's not to let the defense completely off the hook for giving up 300 yards on the ground, but what's the biggest contributing factor? There are other factors. There are other failures. But what was the biggest failure to me? It's, you can't put the defense week in and week out constantly on the field 24/7 and expect them to hold up in football games. It's not going to happen. Mega says, the Hawks Nest, point made, but after what we gave up for him, I was hoping for more. Yes, a little unfair given it was his first game, which is why I'm staying open-minded. Well, I flashed this up at the start, Megan. I mean, here's his PFF scores from the year. If you go down the line on looking at what he's done with the Giants, the top is the Giants score on the left-hand column where it says defense, right? And so if you look at his scores with the Giants and what he's done over the course of this year, including the previous week against the New York Jets where he posted the exact same score that he posted in our game. If our expectation level is that we're supposed to be getting or if your expectation level is that we're supposed to be getting an 80 grade PFF player or an 85 grade PFF player, that's a tier 1 defensive lineman. And that's not who Leonard Williams is, would be my bit of pushback on that, is that it's okay if we want to put an expectation level that he should come in and be that way, but we don't have any recent proof that he's been that way. And to say, well, the second round pick should be that you have to get a guy like that, you're not necessarily getting a guy in the second round that's going to have that kind of impact. Like, that's not necessarily like a no-brainer that guy you take there is going to bring that in there either on that side of things. So it's, he's bringing what he brought, what you were hoping you kind of got there with the Giants. And remembering again, Megan, he was just traded on Monday. This man is in New York, flies all the way across the country, is just barely getting through and learning the playbook, put back up onto the football field, plays 44 snaps, plays a long game. He's not going to have a bye week this year. The body's not necessarily, I'm sure, feeling super great on his side of things. And again, like I said on this, he gives you some of the best defensive scores on the line that you've had this year, absent 4 other games of the rest of the collection of your defensive linemen through 7 other weeks of playing. But I get it. Like you said, Megan, you're not alone, and there's people that are going to be reticent on it. But I mean, not if he's giving us that performance, and you're asking me if I'm going to be coming off the heels of that performance, thinking that's not worthwhile for what we were expecting to get. I'm not going to land there. This is, as I say in the title on this one, from my perspective, Megan, as advertised. As advertised. It wasn't advertised as we're getting DeForest Buckner or LaRon Payne or Jonathan, or Williams with the New York Jets, or Lawrence with the Giants. You're getting Leonard Williams, who's a tier 2 guy, but tier 2 is much better than you had on your defensive line. We'll see how it plays out, though, Megan. We'll see how it goes. Playlist Trav says, what was his PFF grade? His PFF grade, Playlist Trav, this past grade was 69.1 from this one. That's the bottom score. If you can look on, I've got an overlay up right now. The bottom score here, left-hand column in the green there, 69.1. That's his overall grade. Our defenses is run defense, tackling is tackling, pass rush, P-rush is pass rush. But a 69 grade, which is above average overall for defensive linemen in a game. And where our defensive linemen have been at this season is certainly a big plus. Very helpful. Garth, thank you for the $5 donation. Brandon, you just keep spitting out nonsense while Megan has been doing her homework. It's proven over years now. Thank you, Garth, for the $5. Fleece says, I think Al Woods would do a better job playing tackle than Jason Peters. He's just so big, he just takes up space. Appreciate you, Garth, for all your donos, man. Fleece says, are we going to let Evan Brown walk this year and draft another center? I don't really like Olu. I think that's probably the most likely approach that they take, Fleece. I don't think that they are going to have the money to bring back Brown. I don't think he's going to cost a lot. I think he basically gives you league average play for the position. I think that they're going to feel like they can get that at least from Olu and then just try to bring another guy in there to kind of fight it out with him at that point. Yeah, I agree. I don't think he's staying here. King says, I'm not out on Lewis. He just needs to sharpen up and get it back. Definitely need a lot of sharpening up there. Mega says, the Hawks Nest, I just feel that the second round pick may have been better spent, but I hope he proves me wrong. It's a possibility of this process, Megan, and it's a risk that you take on these kind of moves. There are no trades or moves you make without taking a risk somehow or another. And it comes down to, is it worth the risk? Is it the right time to take the risk? Is it the right player to make the risk for? When it comes to those mere 3 questions that I look at on any kind of deal like this and ascertaining whether or not it is the right move or wrong move, I come to the answer of yes, yes, and yes. And if that's the answer on it, then I'm okay with it. Doesn't mean that the move won't potentially work out. But with every decision you say, did you take a logical, intelligent approach to doing it and then take your risk? Did you run the odds? Did you roll? Yeah, you did. And I think that the risk is what it is, and it may be a failed point that can blow back on them. But I like what they've done from a logical standpoint and how they arrived at the reasoning behind this trade and why they did it. Yeah, I think Damian Lewis is probably on his way out too. The thing with Damian Lewis is whether he's C+, B-, capable of being a B left guard, he's not a scheme fit for the mobility stuff that they want to have done. A lot of, like I spoke at the top, a lot of your failure rates in your offense right now and hitting the run block game, for instance, is you'll have 3 or 4 guys who hit their blocks, but you have one guy who fails. And a lot of the times he's failing, it's because he's not hitting his reach block. And so the penetration's getting into the backfield and really pushing through. And it's where you need the lineman that can move in space. We've seen at times Lewis struggling to get out there in the screen game. He's not a bad lineman. He's an NFL lineman. He can play in this league, but you don't have a lot of money to spend this offseason. And you're not going to probably spend it on a guy that's giving you kind of middling recent play, who's also not really a scheme fit for what you do. See flights, why can't we get Dylan Raiola as quarterback? Great Camp Brandon. On the Lockett hit INT, you can see Lockett was looking at Geno with his hand in the air, asking him what to run before the play, but Geno doesn't see it. That's where Greg, they asked in the locker room in the interview, and he didn't hear the call in the huddle. So Geno didn't do a side adjustment at that point. There was a call in the, I said, I think side adjustment. There was a call in the huddle according to what the players are saying on this. They could be just trying to protect Geno on it or whatever. I'm just taking the players at their words mouth with this, saying it was supposed to be, he didn't hear the play in the huddle, and I guess that stuff kind of just happens, But it's also, Geno's expecting his guy to be in a place. The guy's not in the place that he's supposed to be. Is kind of the bottom line on that, which, should Geno throw that ball? Should he not? Kind of depends on what was the route Tyler was going to run there, if he actually ran the correct route and was in the right place. But that's where there's a little bit of, it's just the complicated, what I was really pointing to, Greg, where mainly is just the complicated nature sometimes on these interceptions, where it all goes to Geno. It's like, well, where was the pass rush? Well, did the receiver run his right route? Did the receiver sit down when he was supposed to run? That was more of the point to that, is just that some of these issues with Geno's throws this year have been painted in that portrait that Geno just is simply playing bad and making the horrible decision, where sometimes there's the other factors coming in. They're actually kind of pushing it into that spot of things that they're outside of his control. That was kind of the main point I was making on that. King says, I could have sworn throwing a ball was just discovered since he goes right now. Just Fields just can't do it. Just Fields is definitely having a hard time. He's had a couple of games this year. He's all right. Let's see what he does. Brandon Taylor, thank you for the $10 donation. I appreciate you for that. Very kind of you. It's great to see you in the chat, brother. Hope you're doing well. Locke was set up to fail in Denver, and Teddy didn't look any better. Honestly, I feel like if Drew started this year and played the same way as Geno, we wouldn't defend him the way we do for Geno. That very well might be true. The thing that Drew coming in and playing this year like that, Brandon, is you don't have the performance you had from Geno last year, which you might be right on Locke, that Locke is set up to, or not set up, but has an ability to be successful now, where he was set up to fail in Denver. But Geno gave you a comeback player of the year last year level of play. He set Seahawk records just after you moved on from the greatest quarterback that's ever played the position for you. That factors into the understanding on giving him a little bit more of room for rope, or room for air, before reaching some spot where we go, okay, we got to move on from him. Especially when we dive into the tape, especially like the reasons I just provided there on, why these things are occurring and why they're happening. Yeah, I will give you, Locke was certainly in a lot of respects set up to fail out there in Denver, and there weren't going to be a lot of quarterbacks that succeeded in that environment. The thing that he had in Denver that he would have been dealing with this year, and this is something I've consistently pointed to, and nobody's been able to counter this point on me with Locke yet. And I think that there's a reason for this. And that is, Brandon, on this, Drew Lock had horrible pass protection efficiency with Denver in the 2 seasons that he was starting in there, as did Teddy Bridgewater. Geno Smith, through this year, through the totality of the year, has had miserable pass protection. So when we come to, moving on from Geno to Drew Lock being better than Geno, the other factor comes into play, just like you're acknowledging in the setup part of it. A quarterback's success is part of how they're set up. So you have him in Denver failing behind poor pass protection, where he's got some receivers on the outside to throw to, Patrick, Courtland Sutton, the like. But he also, big key here, Brandon, also has a consistent ground game during that couple-year period. They can actually run the ball. The thing, though, that he'd also be dealing with, in addition to having poor pass protection throughout this year, is a lack of running consistency. So he'd even have one more factor, if he had been playing throughout this year, Drew Lock, one more factor removed for his success that he actually did have in Denver. But then hopefully then, and I don't think I'm landing on the folks that are pro Lock on this, it's hard for me to then take that all in and then go, but he'll be better in this environment than Geno Smith would be. But he'll be excelling in this environment with that kind of setup. Because like you acknowledge, and I thank you so much, Brandon, for the $10 donation, he's set up to fail in that first thing. I'd argue pretty much any quarterback in this environment for this offense so far this year would also be set up to fail. There are not many quarterbacks that are going to flourish behind horrific pass protection and a run game that has no consistency. That's sort of a doomed setup to me for any offense to fail at that point, for any quarterback to look miserable at that point. So that's my only thing with this on the Drew thing. I can be explained how Drew does, but, and Brandon, please do feel free, you don't have to donate in, but do feel free just to put in the chat and where you think on this. Where is our belief that Drew is going to excel in that condition when he didn't before, especially when the conditions are even worse than they were before? How does that, it's hard for me to make sense of that exactly, because I just go, he's going to fail every bit as much as Geno, if not worse than Geno, put into this kind of situations. And I could be wrong on that, but that's where I have to have a little more basis behind the going to the Drew Lock thing as to how he will be better, where he will be better. He didn't beat out Geno when they had a competition. He has not looked better on the field in the times he's gone out. We can't just go to one Giants drive and say, well, see, there we go. That's it. That's a single drive against a miserable Giants team. I don't think we could just go to that one thing. And if we go through the rest of the majority of the plays in the preseason action that he has had, it ain't been good. It's been all right. It certainly hasn't been as convincing as to make you believe this is a guy who should be taken over for your starter right now. So you can convince me to the Drew Lock thing, but I need an argument to be made on that as to how he's going to flourish in the environment and how it's been set up here so far this year. I just don't think too many quarterbacks would. Poor offensive coordinating, poor play calling, lack of running game, horrible pass protection. I think a lot of quarterbacks are kind of going to fail in this environment if you put these kind of parameters around them. But Brandon, no doubt about it, man. I appreciate your donation. And let me say, as I say well of this, you're not alone. There's a lot of people in the Hawk fan. I'm having a lot of discussions with them here over the last couple of weeks of the chat that really do feel Geno is a big part of the problem here at the play, and that Drew Lock is or if not that Drew Lock is the answer. But I just can't get there for those reasons myself. And I'm pretty stringently in that spot where I have that outlook on it. More data can move me to sway me in other ways, but not quite yet. Jordan says Bears also have a lot of money to use in free agency. They do have a lot. They did just sign Montez Sweat to a new deal, so that's going to eat a little bit into that. But they still have some money to spend besides that. And there's a lot of teams out there that even beyond the Bears that will be able to outpace us totally in any deal for any player at all. Kings out, Williams and Buckner is closer than you think, Brandon. I'm with that, brother. I'm with that. I'm trying not to oversell my case too much. You know what I mean? I'm trying to remain pretty level on this so I don't get too far into the realm where I can be accused of overstating through, you know. Fleece says the Bears had like $90 million in cap space last year. They did. Yeah, they rolled over a good amount, I think, of that too. Wu-Tang Financial, thank you for the $5 donation. Says Big Leo is a reliably above average starter. Having another solid vet up front was a great move. Wonderfully put, Wu-Tang. I agree with that 100. You know I'm with it. I agree with 100%. And as much as a above average starter might not get a lot of people excited for the defensive line, these are hard to find. Hard to find. They're not just proliferated in every single draft. You get a lot of these drafts where it's like, well, we've got like one single guy left in the second round worthy of being picked here. Oh, we got two defensive linemen in this third round that are worthy of being picked here. One's not really a scheme fit for what we do. It's been tough the last couple of drafts looking at this line talent coming out. It's not been great. But thank you, Wu-Tang. Appreciate you for that. Brandon Taylor with another $5. And Brandon, very kind of you for the double dip donation, brother. Appreciate you. If Geno continues to play this way for the rest of the year, then we absolutely should move on to Lock and a rookie. At worst, it's the same play. I'm okay with coming to that conclusion on it. Certainly the factoring in of how much money this costs is a big part of this. Geno this year and costing $10 million on the cap, 17th most amount in the NFL, should factor into a little bit of our viewpoint and where our expectations should be for his level of play. But if he's going to start moving into $30 million a year territory on the books, that puts it in a different viewpoint. You're going to go 3 times the money in the cost. That's going to change a little bit of the way that I look at you. And if the coaching staff, kind of as I was saying earlier on this, Brandon, I don't know about this, and that's part of the hard part about the Drew Lock thing is I'm asked to make kind of determinations on things that I don't have all the data on. I don't have the practice film. I don't know how he's looked matched up day after day after day against Geno and how he has looked. But if your conclusion is correct, and indeed that he is very close. If he's 90% of Geno Smith, then indeed to bring him back on a $5 million deal versus having Geno come back at $30 million would make more sense. It's logically would make more sense to go that direction, especially since I think the commonality here between whether it's Drew Lock or Geno into the future would be that you are going to draft a quarterback in this upcoming draft. That will be, I think, the common denominator. King says they both stuff the run, but Buckner has 2 or 3 more inches on him at 6'7", but I know Williams is a more powerful man. Oh, I like that. Yeah, I feel like Buckner's a little bit more of the try to get by with some of the quickness and use the length stuff. They're both really long too. They're both great players. He says I see a dead even talent, Brandon, but they just play much different play styles. That's fair enough. They both do. There's some similarities, different play styles, but they kind of accomplish the bottom line same thing you need to bring to the defense. Greg says, Brandon, with Mike Morris coming back next year, who do you see being on the D-line rotation next year? I think that you're going to see certainly Cam Young, Mike Morris. I think they're going to re-sign Leonard Williams. I think they're going to try to bring back Jaron Reed and Mario Edwards Jr. as well. But maybe only one of those guys you're able to bring back and then draft another guy. I think there will be somebody that they end up taking in their early couple of rounds because there'll be some interesting defensive line. This is one draft where there is some good defensive line talent. I don't think it's star power driven, but it has some. It has a little more depth to it than recent years' defensive line drafts have had. Brandon Taylor, though, man, thank you for the $5 donation. And I know we might disagree a little with the Geno thing above, but I'm absolutely in agreement with you on this as far as if you want to go to Lock at that point, they think that he's at that spot of being very close to Geno and that Geno is regressing and whatnot. This is a year by year by the way that they put this contract together. You get the opportunity to not have to be married to Geno, but to make the determination every year of what's the right approach. And my whole thing with it has been with just Geno on making this determination is just give me the year to make the determination. Let me see how he plays this year. If he played purely bad with a good offensive line and a running game that was running, I'd be feeling different about whether or not to go to Drew right now. But give me a full year to see where this offense is at and how it goes. And I very well may land in that conclusion myself when we get to the end of the season. Megan says, the Hawks Nest, great point about the pick and the lack of bye week for Leo. I guess the best I can give you is I'll keep an open mind and see what happens. Well, and there's been many times I thought I was right, and you've been proven wrong on this channel at times, Megan. So you might end up being, proven right on this. But there's a long period of time I've gone into thinking about this pick and considering it since last week. And, when you run the numbers and you put it all, you computate it all into the computer and tell the computer to spit out a bottom line on it, that is just kind of where my bottom line comes out with it. And it's a complicated situation. In I think an ideal scenario, you would be drafting defensive linemen and finding them there, and that's where you get the talent. But some of this is where the NFL is driven to, where all of these guys are just being maximally just coveted. These linemen are all precious from Lord of the Rings. They're all the ring from the Lord of the Rings, and nobody's giving up their guys. Nobody. The Buffalo didn't give up Oliver. Titans didn't give up Jeffrey Simmons. The Giants didn't give up Lawrence. The Jets didn't give up Williams. The Commanders didn't give up Allen or LaRon Payne. I don't believe the Carolina Panthers are going to give up Derek Brown. The Colts aren't giving up DeForest Buckner. And most of those guys I just listed all have gotten recent contract extensions in the last year. This is just becoming one of those positions where teams understand how important they are, and they're not letting them out of their grasp. Guard Knight, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, Brando, ask the cat for an advice on a 2-leg parlay for tonight's game. Yeah, let's get the advice on it here for the cat on that one. Let me run through. Let's get maybe a little bit of let's run a little bit of a poll here, Garth. To your point on that, thank you for the donation. Let's get a little poll here for tonight's game. Let's have the chat spend Brandon's money. We're going to call a new segment tonight. The segment's called Spend Brandon's Money. The folks over at Underdog Fantasy were kind enough to give me some credits out there on the deal. So let's put those to use, right? Let's put them to use, right, Garth? Well, let's do this. Thank you for the donation, my man. All right, I'm gonna grab a couple and then I'm gonna put this to the chat. What we're going to do is we're going to grab a couple of markers here. And we're going to try to figure out which ones I like first. So we've got, let's look it through here. We got Carolina with Bryce Young going against Chicago, 216 passing yards. And we kind of like that for Bryce Young, but he has looked over his head, hasn't he? Thielen, more than 67 yards. I like that one. We're going to go with that. And we're going to vote on these, so I'm going to give you guys a couple of votes for this. Let's see. Hayden Hurst, 16.5 yards. Eddie Pinheiro, 1.5 field goals made. Kind of like that one. Oh, yeah. Frankie Luvu, 5 tackles all day. And then let's go with the 3-legger for you. And let's go with yikes. I don't like doing anything with Chicago right now offensively because they got that Badgett kid starting. That's a no for me. I'll put my first 4 up and we'll put it to a vote for you guys on this one. Jalen Johnson didn't get moved, huh? Crazy. Four receptions to Cole Kmet. I'm going lower. All right, let's go lower. I'll put this to the chat. Let's see what you guys think on this. We'll let you guys spend my money. We're going to have you guys give me the best bets. I'm going to give you guys some selections over the course of the show here as we go through here, and then you guys can let me know who you think I need to do this with. So, let's go do a poll. Oh, shoot. Sorry, my guys. My bad, guys. Yikes. All right. That's not good. Sorry, bear with me, folks. I want to do this part of the thing with this deal here, if I can get my ding thing to work right. All right. All right, who to tonight? We're going to go with Adam over yards. Frankie Luvu. Commit. 4 receptions. All right. We'll do it like that. I'll let you guys make the guess. We'll have you guys start this out tonight. Put the poll up. You guys let me know what you guys lean to. We'll kind of build this up a little bit here as we kind of roll through the show a little bit. Let me know what you guys think on picks. Help me out. Help spend my money. Okay. Great suggestion there, Garth. We'll see what the Orange Cat says. She's sleeping right now, so I dare not disturb her. I don't want to lose a finger. But we'll see what you guys got for that. Thank you for the $5 dono. I watch this regardless of whose fault whatever was. Gino at $30 million a year is way too much. Well, and I think the fact that I watched they gave themselves an out to get out of this contract is indicative of that. I think that was a kind of a red herring there, a little bit of, okay, we are paying you, technically speaking. We are going to reward you, but we're also not necessarily sure we're going to get exactly the performance maybe. And we want to see you do it for a second year. We're not going to pay you for just 1 year of top-notch performance. And I think that that's part of why they gave themselves that out. And I would expect them to take that out if that's where they feel on it. No, we're not getting that bang for the buck. Greg says, Brandon, I was just pointing out the confusion of the play from the beginning. Oh, okay. My bad, man. Sometimes stuff isn't always super clear when I read it first in the chat and I'm flying through, Lisa Max says, I wonder why Gino didn't ask for more money. That's really strange. Was there more money that he could go get? Was he giving them a little bit of a discount so they could build a better team? Did he want to, hard to say on that. Have to be kind of behind the curtain and know how those negotiations went. King says, but he's also maintained more than he did last year by long shots. I don't know. Joe Boer, play calling is just as important as offensive line play calling and quarterback play. Agreed. It all works together. It's all, it to me is all part of the, theoretical process here to building an offense and having an offense perform well. Only peace tonight, Garth. Only peace in the chat, please, brother. Only peace. Please, please, please. Alan, Brandon YT agreed for the 1,000th time on the Geno Smith subject. Seahawks taking the Ravens stone cold off. Kingdom Joke, Leonard Williams did more than his job for us. Maybe for real. He did a good job, but you can't expect everybody to be Cortez Kennedy's. I agree, man. He did awesome. Wu-Tang, generational talents don't grow on trees. Being above average starter in the NFL is still a very valuable thing. Well said. Brandon says coaching and confidence plays a huge role, and I believe Geno doesn't have the confidence that Locke has right now. Also, Locke will throw the checkdowns and the East completions that Geno isn't. Those are great. I like that you brought some specificity on your argument, Brandon. So I love that, man. Could be confidence is a part of the factor there. Geno certainly hasn't looked like he's playing with much, kind of swag or any of that as it would stand right now to my eyes either. And I certainly doesn't seem like that's an issue with Drew Lock. Maybe sometimes you can say he's got a little bit too much swag and confidence. And you might be right on it. I do land on this that I think the coaching staff, if they felt that way, would be as much willing to go to Drew Lock. There is a reticence to change quarterbacks, but I think if their conclusion on that was to go to him and that he's the better option, I think they would do so. Specifically for the reason that you haven't married yourself to Geno here in the long term. This isn't a Russell Wilson situation where he just signed some 5-year fully guarantee, or Deshaun Watson situation. If you've got a better quarterback in the room and competition is truly king in this locker room and he's going to play, far superior to Geno Smith, I would expect them to make that move if that's where they do stand with it. DVN says, Oxness, when I said the number 2 thing was coping mechanism, I feel like people say that to justify the pick. Personally, whether the pick would pan out or not, I don't regret adding an obvious need. I feel you, man. I feel you on that, and I feel pretty much the same way. Lazy Dogs has missed a lot of thumbs up for the Hawks. Please do hit that like button. Thank you for reminding me. Hit that like if you could. Helps the channel out tremendously. We're almost passing 14,200 today on the sub count. King says, relish the spoils, Brandon. We deserve it, win or loss. I'm with it. Enjoy the journey. I watched as I hope we re-sign Leo. I would hate another Sheldon Richardson rental. Me too. And I'm expecting the team's going to make a very strong push to bring him back into the house. Bring him back into the house. Kingdom Joe says, I look at it like a second-round pick is only as good as your theory on it. Because since when is a rookie better than a vet? I don't value rookies as high as experienced players with few exceptions. It's well said, Kingdom Joe. And there is no guarantees on those picks. There's no guarantees you get the fast return. Sometimes you got to wait 2-3 years to get those guys, especially on the line that can be sometimes a very hard position to play and learn. There is no guarantees to that. I'm with it too. Brandon says, plus I don't feel like this competition was a fair fight. Geno has been here for years. It was a huge uphill battle, plus he got COVID. Don't forget he outdueled Geno in the mock game by far. Certainly looked better in the mock game. I think, Brandon, there is a lot of offseason and mini camp and training camp that they go through. They had another whole mini camp, training camp, preseason process they went through this year. And if it's at a spot where Drew Lock is head and shoulders above Geno, or just as shoulders above Geno, if he's above Geno, and you've got a better quarterback on your team that you can go call upon to play to, that you're having sit on your bench, and that he's outplaying him in these practices, I mean, this is the place that I guess I give more credit to the coaching staff than others do here. I don't think that the coaching staff is so dumb as to sit on a player who would be better than the player they have rolling out there if it was obvious that that was going to be the case, if it really did seem to them that there was an indication that that was the way this went. And he had the COVID thing, that still doesn't take away all the practice in the minicamp. And while Geno was here for years, you were 1 year removed from changing over completely the offensive scheme. Geno was only in year 2 of this playbook. So in a lot of ways, he wasn't that much really further ahead than Drew Lock and the whole playbook thing. It wasn't like he's playing under Waldron for five years and it was going to be seamless when he walked in there. But the bottom line point on is that for the folks that think Drew Lock is the guy we should go to, and you bring up good points above, Brandon, it's not to say that, but also you got to acknowledge within this, and what you're saying with that is that in my outlook and how I'm seeing the quarterback position played, am seeing this clearer and better than the coaching staff is. Because to say that Drew Lock should be the starter is to logically also say the coaching staff is not seeing who should be the starter clearly. And that's a place that I'm not really prepared to go in, because they do have more data they're operating off of than any of us do. That the practices day in and day out, these guys going head to head. And if what we're led to believe is the case when it comes to Seahawk practice, competition is supposed to be king. So, let's remove the scrimmage game. I'll even toss out for you the preseason games, which do not work in Drew Lock's favor. They also don't work in his favor this year. I don't think he played necessarily particularly well in this year's preseason games either. But let's, for the sake of the argument, throw all of that stuff out. Do we trust, Brandon, when it comes down to it, that 2 years worth of practices, OTAs, minicamp, training camps, throughout the preseasons, regular season practices throughout those years, do you think in that 2 year period that he's been outperforming Geno Smith on that practice field? He's been showing himself to be a better quarterback, and the coaching staff just ignored that. That the coaching staff went into this offseason with a view of whether or not they would sign Geno Smith again, and they could bring back Drew Lock for a $5 million deal. They could not have to commit to any quarterback in the future at that point. They could save some money, but yet they instead went to Geno Smith and paid in that contract. To me, that's indications, if I'm, again, trying to take this logically because I don't have the information, so what you then have to do is kind of logically deduce what is going on. If I was to play that all out, I play that out to be, okay, he's not outperforming him in practice. Geno's outperforming Drew Lock in practice. And maybe that's not the case, and we'll come to find that out, that it's a different way that day, but that's how I reach that conclusion myself. And I have a hard time getting to the place where Drew is the answer there. True Bolorv, is Diggs getting cut next year? I think it's going to be, there's a very strong possibility here with Diggs and Adams that we're looking at two safeties new next year. It's hard with the amount of money, $50 million invested in the safety position, to believe that you're getting the return of that. It doesn't mean necessarily Diggs is just playing outright bad, but when you're putting that kind of investment into that positional group, you're going to want to see it impacting in some way. You're going to see the benefits and the returns of that. If you mean Seahawks, we signed Jaron Reed to a 2-year deal. I forgot about that. It was a 2-year deal, wasn't it? Well, there we go. That's good. Greg, Hawks gave up on tight end sets because people were complaining about GSN for no reason. Yeah, people definitely were some anxiousness to try to get him acclimated into the offense. Jeffrey O'Kelly, Leonard Taylor, someone I've had my eye on for a while now. I like his game quite a bit, Jeffrey. Pure 3 tech, penetrator, having a little bit of a down year so far this year, but very talented kid, and might have some of the best first step quickness of anybody in this draft on the defensive line, I would say. Bear with me 1 second, folks. Get a little more coffee. Garth, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, here we go again. Brandon being, we should have happened the betterment of the Raven. I mean, Seahawk franchise. Garth, I appreciate all your donations, man. I'm not doing, I just, in the name of peace and harmony, peace on earth and harmony, I want to just, thank you for the $5 donation. Fleece says the Panthers holding Brian Burns. Yeah, they're not letting him go. Gavin says, I do think Locke should have gone the 4th against the Ravens. You're not alone. And I know, like you and Brandon Taylor, like I said, there's a lot of feel. I'm maybe in a growing, ever-growing, smaller camp. I might be on one of those little islands that just keeps losing more and more territory here as far as the rest of the fan base and where they stand with Geno, and I might be the last guy on the island. But you guys are asking where I stand on it, and that's just where I sit. I'm very keenly aware at this point. I'm very absolutely quantifiably aware that there is a huge segment of the fan base that absolutely is out on Geno and doesn't want Geno to be the QB and is really on Drew Lock at this point. But I can only kind of hammer it so much on this one. You know what I mean? Like we churn it over week after week on this one, and I sit where I sit with it. So I might end up being the last guy on this mountain, but that's just the way I see it. Just the way I see it. Jeffrey, Phil Komet will have more than 4 catches because Tyler is bad. Because Tyler is bad, he'll have his safety valve. That's a good point. I watch as DJ Moore will have 100 yards, 2 touchdowns because he's on my fantasy team. Jill Orr, Baskridge runs 1 fly sweep every 6 weeks and then comes off the IR only to break a fingernail and be out the remainder of the season. Facts. That's big facts right there. Brandon Taylor, I think they didn't want any talk about a quarterback controversy. And if Geno's confidence is shaky, he might have felt like it was due to performance and not because the game was over. I think they didn't want to talk about the quarterback. And if Geno's confidence is shaky, he might have felt like it was due to performance and not because the game was over. Well, I do think, Brandon, if they feel like he's playing that poorly, I think that they will make the change. I don't think they've married themselves to Geno in the way they were married to Russell, where there was never any chance, no matter how Russell played. Not that Russell played always at a time to be replaced, but that there was never going to be a spot of Russell being moved out with the contract he had in the books and the commitment that was there and the pelts on the wall and all that stuff. I think if it is this bad with Geno, they'll be willing to go to it. If it indeed is one where he is not confident, not operating the offense the way he should, missing things, we'll see. I don't know, Brandon, how Drew Lock would have played any better this past week against Baltimore. I really don't. You were giving up pressures all over the place in that line. I mean, I just don't, that's the part I struggle with here. I don't know how he plays better with just simply confident. Like, confidence doesn't have your offensive line pass protecting any better. Confidence doesn't make your run blocking. You can have all the confidence in the world, and if everything's set up to fail in front of you, and you mentioned at this part, Brandon, you acknowledged the part. He was set up to fail in Denver. He might have been awesome out the gate, but because the situation sucked in Denver, he sucked. And he might be awesome right now, but if the situation sucks in front of him, it might make him suck. And Geno might be awesome now, but the situation in front of him sucks, it might make him suck. That's kind of what I'm saying with that on it a bit. We still are in it after all. Can't really depend on another quarterback takeover. However, 100% believe Locke would be better. And as I say, you're not alone, man. Brandon, there's a lot of people that do feel away, but I won't be getting there myself because I don't have the practice film to go off of with Drew Lock. I've got a very tiny little bit to operate off of, and that's just not enough for me to make a determination about making a major midseason change of a quarterback change. Megan says, the Hawks Nest, I'm not a betting person and can think of a million better ways to spend your money, dude. So Megan, this is part of the sponsorship, Megan, I have on the channel with Underdog Fantasy. And they've given me some credits on the account because they would like me to see if my audience might want to take advantage of the sponsorship. And so it's part of the sponsorship of them sponsoring the channel the past year of allowing to do this. So they've put credits on my account, Megan. I'm not actually spending the money. And I'm hopefully doing this because I'd like to maintain the sponsorship in the future and keep them going for the foreseeable future years. But thank you to Underdog Fantasy. You can use my code right now, NEST, click it down the description link section below, and you can take advantage of that right now. Click down that link, and they will match you up to 100% on your first deposit using the code NEST. Be more Seahawks B. What made no sense that we didn't attack the middle of the field at all. Ravens game, we're just too afraid of Roquan and Queen. All I saw was mostly out routes, Hawks Nest. Yeah, middle of the field remains a no-go zone for us, it seemingly is. And the stacked fronts especially gave us a lot of trouble, Feed Me More Seahawks, and the stacked fronts dropping into their zone drops, specifically being Queen and Roquan in this game. So they come up and they would mug the A gap, both of them, shoulder to shoulder, standing right up in there, and then they would drop back into zone. And so once they did that, that would then confuse Geno because Geno would think the blitz was coming. And then sometimes the blitz would come, and sometimes it'd be one guy dropping, one guy coming. And it's a scheme that I have a lot of affinity for. I wish our defense would run a lot of the similar things because I think it gives a lot of quarterbacks that kind of trouble. But yeah, when they dropped into their zones, and those guys are really quick, so they can mug over the A gap, and then they can still get to their spot drop down the field. There was one play where Roquan picked up JSN down in the middle of the field when he started out over the top of the A gap. It was a pretty incredible play that showed off his quickness and speed there to get to that spot. Fleets the Mac, if you put Drew Lock in the game with Jason Peters struggling to play right tackle and Damian Lewis having an off day, he will always struggle like Geno. I don't understand putting Drew Lock in. If Drew Lock in this offensive line collapsing, he will also be terrible. That's my feeling on it as well. Bruce Springs got Adams more than 6 point, did I put Adam? I didn't mean to put Adam. I was trying to put Thielen. Yeah, Adam Thielen. That's who it is. Sorry. I typed in Adam. What was I doing? So that's Thielen on the other option. So Thielen over 67.5 yards seems to be the good one. Lulu at 5-point tackles, and then you guys aren't buying the under. So it looks like you guys are kind of telling me to go with the over on the unders I got based on what I'm seeing. We'll let it roll a little bit more for that and see where you guys got it. Chewable Orb, I agree with throwing over the middle. It seems like there should have been some space open in the middle with the linebackers blitzing all the time. Yeah. It's 100% a fair point. Very, very, very fair. Goes to practice squad. This goes back. King's House says kickers will be in work today, boys. I might have to go kicker. That one with Pinheiro, 1.5, what was it, field goals or extra points? I don't know. That one's looking kind of tasty. Yeah, I think I might have to do that one. I'm making the Hawks Nest, great point, but it doesn't mean that we should have started looking earlier instead of waiting for the last minute when there's not anyone to choose from. Agreed. This would have been the ideal, Megan, would be to find it in an off season. So let's go back a little bit to this off season, Megan, if we could. So I'm with you on your point. The key on your point then is built. We should have done it earlier. So then built within your saying should have done it earlier is to acknowledge what you're saying kind of silently below that is there is a player available to go get at the caliber of Leonard Williams' ability earlier. Okay? One of those goes to the other. Who was that player? The Seahawks signed the best defensive lineman on the open market, maybe absent Javon Hargrave. And Javon Hargrave wouldn't have been a better addition. He's not the same kind of player as Williams and being a real complete player. He's only really a pass rusher. And part of the reason that part of the problem we have with Draymond Jones right now is that that's all he does give you is kind of the pass rush. He doesn't give you the run defense element. So there wasn't a guy on the open market to go out there and sign. Every other major defensive lineman, as I went through that litany of defensive line names of those guys that got signed over the course of just this offseason, those would have been guys that maybe theoretically would have been open on the open market if the teams didn't want to re-sign them, but because they re-signed them, they weren't on the open market. A DeForest Buckner trade was not there to be made. So who is the player that was available via trade or via free agency that they didn't go out there and try to take there wasn't one guy to sign. There was nobody there. That's the problem there is I'm with you on, you would have liked to have addressed this in the offseason. That would have been the ideal, but there wasn't the place there to go and address it. That's my point on it, where I just don't think you got that guy to go grab. Chewable Orb, Taylor getting so many snaps is just brutal. It is. He's definitely not good on the run. Just it ain't coming. Greg Kemp says, Brandon, Adam has only had less than 67 yards 3 times this year. That's where Adam's definitely been in the money for me a few times. I'm gravitate towards that one. So I think we're going to do the Adams. I think Adam Thielen over 67 yards is a hell yes from the chat. That's what I'm getting from you guys on this one. So 67 over. I'm also seeing Frankie Louvu over 5 tackles. I think we're going to include that one. So there's your 2-leg parlay right there, Garth. Let's do one more little one here and try to refine this down a bit. So I'll switch the Chicago ones to over. And then let's add in, yeah, we'll go with these two. Let's put the kickers in. Kickers are kind of like low-key a good way to make this go. Like you can, especially if you're anticipating like this one where there ain't going to be a lot of touchdown scored. All right. So the poll, end that poll off. That one's done. So we got Louvu and Thielen neck and neck. Here's our next one. So we got over receptions. Jairo Santos. $1.5 XP. And last option we'll throw in. Let's see if we got some Tyson Badgett believers out there in the audience. Badgett. Let me say his name right. Over 188. All right. We'll refine this one out from here. We got our first 2 with Thielen and Louvu. And now I'll give you these next slice of these 4, and you guys let me know what you think. Show me the way, my people. Show me the way. Show me the way to come home. I'm tired and I want to go home. Add Sanders at 1.5 receptions. Maybe we'll do one more before this. Sanders, 1.5 receptions. More? You're saying more? More than? Joe Bloor, Taylor has no business sniffing the field on 1st and 2nd downs. No doubt about that. I watch this. Then again, I'm sure the coaches have politics to deal with as well, not just logistics. It's probably complicated making these kind of changes. It's probably not easy making a QB change. We need Devin Bush back. I'd bring him back, especially if you let Jordan walk. I'd bring him back for sure. Greg says DK has more yards and first downs than Tyler right now and more yards than JSN and Bobo combined. Why would getting rid of DK to get JSN and Bobo more playing time be a good idea? It wouldn't be. I wouldn't do it. Somebody mentioned that in the chat. Luis, good evening. How you doing? Brandon says there's also politics involved, I think. Not to mention Pete never benching guys he likes. Taylor, Eskridge, Trey Flowers. We liked Locke enough to bring him back in free agency as well. We did. I think that they were accommodating him a little bit in that he didn't have much of an open market out there, which I think would be something I'd point to you, Brandon, as well. Of, if he is this good and teams around the league also somebody would have an affinity for him, and especially in the offseason where guys like Baker Mayfield are being handed a job again after, not doing great in his first 2 stops. But this is the part that we enter into on the Brandon part of it where it's not fun for me to talk about it on this part because we start playing the guessing game. Well, maybe politics are involved. Well, maybe this is happening. Well, maybe, this is occurring. And we're all then at that point sort of guessing as to what's happening as opposed to having even just a kind of an inkling or a good idea as to what is actually happening. It's kind of like saying, well, Gino's playing without confidence. Well, it maybe looks like he's playing without confidence, but we don't really know if he's playing without confidence. Maybe it's just that he feels he's under an avalanche every other play, which he kind of has been. These are the things that we're making. I don't like to delve into this territory too much because it just becomes a guessing game on things that we don't have any understanding or knowledge about. And that's the part where I bristle with it a little bit where I go, I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. We don't know that that's the case. Certainly politics are going to factor into it. But this is also the team that paid Matt Flynn $27 million and started a rookie Russell Wilson. So they have also had a track record at times at the quarterback position and being willing to pay a one quarterback and go to another guy if that other guy is the better player. That sort of fits to my argument more than it would fit to yours, Brandon, because if it was this politic thing, then they wouldn't have made a move like that. They wouldn't have. Tavares Jackson was also in that locker room, a tremendously popular player in the locker room at that time. He also missed that starting job due to Russell Wilson ascending to that. But they were willing to do it because they just trusted this is the best player for us in this position. But that's just my thinking on it, man. That's just where I'm at. I appreciate where you're coming from on it. And as I say, you're not alone. There's many that feel that way. Yeah, I mean, I'm not for benching Gino, just that the game was lost really in the third quarter. Let Gino think about it some. I just don't think that the coaching staff, Gavin, looks at that game and says that this is on Gino offensively. I think if we were to poll Coach Carroll, that would not be where he would start with the issues. I would say he does mention Gino needs to eliminate the bad troublesome errors, the turnover plays, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he looks at him as not playing the position well or up to snuff either, you know. Garth, thank you for the $10 donation. Says, Brando, I completely apologize. Sometimes I just feel like I'm in a Chicago Bulls chat and a moderator asks if Michael Jordan can dunk a basketball. Hashtag, this is my problem. No worries, Garth. It's all good, man. And we get spicy in here sometimes. I know how that goes with it. But you know what me, man, I'm a sheriff in a wild town, just trying to keep the peace, you know? Just trying to keep the peace and the blood not spilled. You know what I mean? That's all I'm trying to do on this one. But thank you, man, for all your donations tonight, brother. And I do appreciate you. King's Alice, it's okay, Brandon. I like the Underdog sponsorship. Thank you, brother. I've appreciated it too. And they were very kind with me on this sponsorship. You guys have done a great job of utilizing my code. It's really hard for me here because in the state of Washington, we do have restrictions. You can use it in the casino. Technically, if you're in that little bit of a, Wi-Fi cage there, you can go in there and use the app on that. But I've enjoyed it too, playing and running some of these picks every week. And just, it adds another layer in watching the early games, especially on Red Zone, as you're tracking your guy and like one more catch. Yes, he got one more catch. It just kind of gives it that extra layer a little bit, Motive, can Jordan still dunk? He's getting up there in age and weight. He can still do it. When you start with 45-inch vertical leap, even when you get to like nearly 60 years old, you'll still be at probably like a 35-inch on a 6'5" frame. You're still able to dunk. It's not going to be like the nice dunks where he like brings it back behind his head and hangs in the air, but it would be a dunk. I watched, so his Jalen Carter pick would have been the smarter choice? I don't think so. No. I like Jalen Carter, but I think Witherspoon's been the better selection, the smarter selection for the Hawks. He impacts 100% of the plays. Carter impacts potentially 35% of the plays. Greg says, call on DK one trick point when he's out producing. Sorry, Greg, you must be getting a debate on the deal in the chat. Chewable Orb, I would love to hear your thoughts on Pete Prisco and his perpetual hate for the Seahawks. Pete Prisco can suck a donkey dong. That's one of the more useless journalistic people that have been on the online hemisphere over the last 20 years, and that's saying something. Just a complete waste of space. And I don't think he's ever had anything worthwhile of anything to offer anybody, either on the printed page or whatever has ever come out of his mouth. But other than that, he's a hell of a guy. Viewing more Seahawks. This is an outrage. How can Brandon not be nominated for Seahawks Fan of the Year? It's a war crime. I'm going to storm. Well, I don't know. Oh, I think Tom. There's a lot of people out there nominated. I don't know if I'm there. There's folks doing some extra. I mean, Tom doing that 30-day trip that he did with the cancer donations and visited in 30 cities like he did. Those guys have done some great stuff. So a lot of those people they're paying out are well worthy of it. I'm too emotional. I don't have even enough keel. Feed me. DVN, I'm going to be honest. I'm a devil's advocate for the free locksmith. I think there's good arguments on both sides. I think there is good arguments on both sides. I disagree with the other side of it, but I'm trying to acknowledge within it, and hopefully I'm providing a good measure of respect for those folks that do feel that way, that I'm not trying to tear into you or make you feel like you don't have a position to stand on with this. It just happens to be one I just disagree with, but I get where people are coming from. Persagana says Cairo Santos all the way. All right, let's go. King's Al, Brandon is easily in the conversation of Seahawks fan of the year. I don't care if it usually Norb, but Brandon deserves it. Oh, well, thank you, King. I appreciate that, man. Very kind. People say Norb is the one nominated. I can't watch the videos. He's more like a family. He doesn't know very much, just in my opinion. Well, Norb's has done it long years, and I mean, I've done this for 4 years now. I think Norb's done it for well over 10 years. He's been at this and cooking, and, he's got a style and he does what he does. And I think he works really hard on his channel and does good work, and as I always say, there's those different flavors of different channels, and he's the biggest of the bunch. Got to give him the tip of the cap too. I mean, he's well over triple, almost quadruple the size of like me and Brendan on our sub count. So got to give him his just due too. Kido Joe, hey B, I'm doing my best to answer your polls. I'll be honest, I'm the last guy anybody wants to battle when it comes to knowledge on the Hawks, but I know nothing about other players and teams. That's why it's a poll, man. I'm using the collective consciousness of my people for monetary gain. It's what all the content creators do, It's a thing. He says, I don't even know who we're polling about. I have no clue who's playing tonight either. Laughing out loud, but I love my Seahawks. So as long as you love the Seahawks, that's the only thing that matters in here, man. People says, I don't see Norb Cam going through the film and keeping the fan base calm. Nope. I like that last part, especially, Feed Me. Keep the fan base calm, man. It's a good way of putting it. King, why is he a fan more than Ayo Sewell, which is what? Hey, that's fair, but come on. Brandon literally out here with a half day's worth of streams and bring fan together. Oh, man. Thank you. You guys are very kind. Norb does great work too, man. And, your guys' presence in here, beyond getting awards and stuff like that, this is my reward. I know that sounds like cheap talk, but I love this discussion. I love even when in the debate and when we go back and forth with you folks out there like you, Brandon Taylor, man. I love this type of stuff. This is what I live for and doing it. And it ain't going to be based on awards or anything like that. I'll always be doing this and loving it. But I appreciate you guys saying it. It's kind of you to say on that, but yeah, Norb's well earned on it too. Gavin says, thanks, Brandon. I agree with what you're saying. Cool. Go Hawks. We're 5-3, so still good. Still good. Analyst, King's Out. Okay, I was like, Annalie Sue? I am not aware of this content creator. To whom of this Annalie Sue do you speak of? All right, let's take a look at our poll results here. Let's see where we're at. What do my people got here? We got our first two. I got to go hard. I got to go with the 4. Sometimes I like to go 5. We're going 4 tonight, though. So I need my people to give me my solid 4. I think I'm going to get some kickers here. Let's see where we're at. Ooh, Cole Kmet over 4 receptions, huh? Okay. I mean, okay. I was going to be so dedicated to taking a lot of unders this week, and I find myself back on the over situation. It's cray. Morton says, I'm trying to make you laugh. I do better sense of humor. Been a fan since the 80s. I might have missed your chat there. Motive, I do need to laugh more, man. V More Seahawks, the B&B show is like Batman and Robin. Brendan is Batman. Brendan is Batman to the serious, never laughs but is smart and has old man. And has old man. And Brendan is Robin, young, smart, and has a funny sense of humor and has some sass. I I'd normally want the Batman, but I'll take that. I'll take the Robin. I'm not wearing the cod piece though. That's a no-go for me, man. I'm not going with that monster cod piece. You know what I'm talking about? And we're not putting nipples on the Robin suit. Those are out for me. Okay. That is a no-go for me. That is my safe word right there. No nipples on a bat suit. It's pretty much just how I roll with it. You know what I mean? All right, we got the poll wrapping up here pretty succinctly here with 27 votes in. We got Cole Kmet over 4 receptions, and Cairo Santos kicking more than 6 points in the game. Seems like the two. I'm going to let it go for a couple more seconds here, but I think you guys are telling me a tale here of where I need to go. You're guiding me, instructing me in the ways of my picks. Megan, thank you for the $10 donation. Appreciate you, Megan. It says, meant to tell you, a friend of mine just gave me the ultimate gift for a 12, a genuine Super Bowl 48 Seahawks jacket as worn by the coaching staff. Her dad found it in a hire car and gave it to her. Found it in a hire car? Just randomly found that? Wow. That's crazy. You think the coaching staff would have held on to that with a death grip, you know? It'd be like in like my Largent deal, and you'd have that in like glass, behind glass or whatever. That is the ultimate gift, Megan. Did she charge you for it? Was it just do you owe her a life debt now? Is that one of the things? King's House says Christopher Walken is the sheriff, rated PG-13. Can't swear, but I can walk the roads and tend to this peace around me. Always there. This peace, riots, frothing the mouth. Why? It's love. I want to be a sheriff of love. No fight. Here, pistol, ground. I put it upon you. Look. See? Holy Iron Grenade, you can't blame us for whatever happens, B. You know we don't know anyone outside of Seattle. I'm not blaming nobody. And hey, like I said, this is all credits based. So this isn't even my real money here. Okay. This is Underdog Fantasy throwing me some credits on the account saying, hey, go wild with it. Go wild with it. So you guys are either going to, there's no loss here. There's only upside. There is no loss. Greg Kev says, Brandon, on the stream you and Brendan did yesterday, y'all mentioned it only being one tight end that plays inline. Is he anything like Darnell Washington? Oh, that would have been the, well, if you're meaning Brock Bowers, Brock Bowers is probably pretty close to, you mentioned one being one tight end that plays in line. Is he anything like, I don't know. Cade Stover. That's who you're thinking of. No. He's a good blocker. And Brendan had him as kind of a comp to Disley, which is relatively fair. I don't think he's quite as good as Disley or Washington. Greg as a blocker, though. He's a solid prospect. He's a good all-around game. Not a lot of flashiness to him. But that's where I would probably pull that through on that one just a little bit. Gavin says, I miss the fiery press conferences the Seahawks used to have. A little spiciness. Keldon, any analogy that makes Brandon the Robin, that relationship is a bad analogy? Yeah, I'm not a big one on that one. That one got me well. I want to be Batman. I want to be Robin. Thank you, Keldon. Chewable, better chance of Huskies D keeping an opponent under 30 or Darrell Taylor making a tackle on a run. Okay, in the next game. Hold on, let me double check. Wait, let's just take a little bit of a look, see here if we can at Darrell Taylor's recent. Why should I have to be the only person who has to witness this? I'm going to make you guys look at it too. You will look at it. I'm going to make you guys look at this score like a puppy facing the poo on the carpet that they just squatted out. All right, so let's look at the player grades from this last week. Defensive player grades. Oh, look, there's Mafia at the top. Diggs actually holding it down. Look at Big Ballore with his eight snaps. Are we on a Nick Ballore needs to be our starting middle linebacker trade? We just keep going down. Leonard Williams in a nice spot there. Where, oh, where is Daryl Taylor? Where, oh, where could he be? Where, oh, where is Daryl Taylor? Oh, there he is. There he is at the little bottom. The little bottom point. Let's look at his scores. Well, was he good against the run this week? Did he give us a good run? Well, which one's the run column? Let's go way back up to the top. Run defense, right there. We see that as the one right next to defense, just to the right. So let's go all the way back to the bottom of the list. Scroll down here. And a 47.7 grade. Lord have mercy. Look at your line in general, though. And look at what Draymond Jones is giving you there at 22. That's $17.5 million right there. Yeah. Only going 36 snaps, too. You played Drummond technically less snaps than you played Leonard Williams in this game. So you can't even go to him and be like, well, he had to play so many snaps this week. I mean, he's just tapped out. That's all. Money well spent down there. Woo. Lee's dog. I only watched to get growl at the yellow kitty. Woof woof. Calvin's friends like the penguin. Oh man, that's mean. Megan says, no cod piece, B. I can understand no nipples, but no cod piece? I'm very upset now. I don't know if the cod piece helps you out there. I don't know if you're intimidating the crime, the people, because they're like, yeah, what are you trying to... It's like the guys that raise that are on the big raised up trucks, with the 40-inch wheels. And you're like, what is he trying to, overcome? You know what I'm saying? And this monster cod piece on the front flap. I think that might work against me in my crime fighting. Just can't do it. Can't do it. I got to have an intimidation level, and cod pieces are not intimidating. It's known. It's widely known, in fact. All right, Cole Kmet over 4 receptions. We're going to end this poll. So we're Cole Kmet over 4 receptions. Cairo Santos with more than 6 kicking points. So I got it in, you guys. Those are going to be my 4. I'm not even insuring him because I trust your guys so much. I trust your decision-making and your guidance that much, you guys. I don't need insurance. I want to go big time here. We're going for the big swing this week. So we'll be doing this every week as we go through for the rest of the season, by the way. I'm going to be asking you guys to help me out with some of these picks. We got to make these credits count for something, right? Let's see what we can do with it. You know what I mean? Let's see if we can make it happen. Cooper says, love the B&B show, but tough to tune into his solo streams. Okay. He's coming along. He's doing better there, Brandon is, with his solo stuff. It's find a footing thing, Brandon's kicking ass this year, though. Taking names. Amy says, I'm sorry you could be Batman, but you're not serious enough. I love you, but I never met a Batman with a sense of humor. That's true. That's true. I do crack too many jokes for Batman on that. I'll have to be more of a plucky side relief guy, but not Robin. Alan says, Daryl Taylor 50-50. I think he gets cut or traded next season. Yeah, this is his time right now to prove and shine. Noah Uchenna-Nwosu, you weren't going to get a lot of an opportunity to get a lot of snaps this year. Here's your chance. Here's your shot. And he's going to either make the most with it, but he is getting into more of that make or break territory of things. I don't know if he'll get traded. They would probably I don't think he would cut. I think they would trade him, but I don't know how much you're going to get back in return. It's going to probably be pretty tough. Amazed that I only had to pay postage. She promised me first. That's awesome. Well, she's super kind for doing that. Good of her to think of you on that. That's awesome. That's a good get. That's a good get. Garth, Brandon, my dad. He's out, as they say, just do it. Just do it. Do it. Full on. Let's go. All right, folks, well, we got down to the bottom of the chat here today. I've got about 2 more shows left on deck today. We're going to be doing a members-only stream here at 5 o'clock, which we will get that out here shortly for you guys on that side of things. So I will be setting that up here for the members, and then I'll be back at 8 o'clock tonight with Brendan Nelson, Seahawks Brendan Nelson, as we will be chopping it up on the B&B show, looking at a preview of this Washington matchup. A tough matchup. In fact, it might not look good on the surface of it because of those 2 recent trades. Because of those 2 recent trades. But that doesn't mean that they're not still a team that is still got a pretty strong defense along some other areas of things, and an offense that's going to be built with a kind of, I think, a philosophy and design to try and maybe, dink and dunk you a little bit and pick you apart on your defense on that side of it. Hal is a bit in that gunslinger role where he'll eventually kind of give you a throw or 2 over the course of a game. But you got the enemy back there, and he's going to, I'm sure, try to attack this Hawks defense in a real particular way, and probably asking his young quarterback to just be patient and take what the defense gives you. We'll see if the Hawks then move to tighten up some of those shorter zones and then force Hal into maybe trying to beat them down the field. But he's got a good arm. He's a pretty good year overall for them. It's going to be a tougher matchup, but we're going to be previewing that at 8 o'clock tonight here back on the channel on my side of things. Greg says, DT had a big second half of the season last year. Does he this year? He might. I think some of that I come from, Greg, is that you had him in the perfect rotational basis at that point, where he wasn't playing too many snaps. And I do worry a little bit like right now that he might be playing a little bit too many snaps, which then does reduce down some of that effectiveness. But I hope so. I hope so. Noob, hey, I like Leonard Williams trade, but I'm super confused how we afford to keep him next year. I was looking at the salary cap, and it feels like there's no way beyond cutting Geno and Safety. What does he mean by Safety? I would say this, Noob, there's a lot of flexibility on the cap for next season. You're right about the fact that as it stands right now, between $6 and $7 million, do you have? Yes. Let's also remember with this Noob that currently I believe that we have about $8 or $9 million on our cap. And so that we're not spending or allotted to anybody. So let's just say that we roll over $5-6 million of this current $8 million we have left on the books. So that's an extra 5-6 added on to the 7. So we're at like $13 million. You've got decisions you can make on both Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams. Diggs is going into the final year of his contract, so if you do move on from that, you're going to save some money. With Jamal Adams, you could make him a post-June 1st designation and split the dead money between what you'd have to eat on him over 2 years and save a huge amount of money on that. You have the Will Disley contract that you can save an additional $7 million on that. You have the Brian Monet contract that you can get out from that you can save, I think, something like $5.75 million on that contract. The NFL is also going to increase the salary cap over the course of this offseason somewhere between $10 and $20 million. So all of that kicks together and you can really create functionally probably a good $30, $35 million of cap space when you put that all together. And then you can absolutely go out there and put Williams and re-sign Williams and re-sign Wagner and still be able to make some noise. So will you have to do some cuts? But yeah, the thing with doing the cuts though is that you're cutting away guys that aren't performing up to the standard of their contract if you choose to do that. So there's ways that this can be done. And there's a strong argument to be made of, what brings bigger impact right now at this point? Quandre Diggs and what he does in center field or what you'd get from Leonard Williams on the defensive line? I mean, just that alone. Or even Draymond Jones. Here's another one, noob. Draymond Jones has a complete out after this year in his contract. You could just slide the money you're paying to Draymond Jones kind of over to Williams. In fact, probably even be a little less than you're spending on Draymond. So they've got some ways to make this happen if they want to do it. Gilbert says, damn, I need better corporate connects so I can get limited edition Hawks gear for free. I'm slacking. King's House says, speaking of tight ends, how do you feel about Fant retaining with the Seahawks? I can see Disley walking personally after his contract's over, but I feel Fant-Parkinson combo will fit the offense better. I don't know if Fant's necessarily super happy with how he's been utilized in this offense since coming over. And I don't know if the Hawks have really shown a way of being able to feature him to what you're going to be paying him. He's going to make Kings out $12, $13 million a year on a new contract extension on the open market. And to pay that amount of money, you need to be featuring the guy. We're having a hard time getting DK featured. We're struggling to figure out how we're going to get JSN acclimated in the offense. Tyler Lockett needs to get his targets. And then we still got a Bobo. I don't know if you're in a position to afford to pay your tight ends that amount of money. I think what you probably likely do is hold on to Disley. Maybe try to bring Parkinson back on a smaller contract. But if somebody out there likes Parkinson as much as like you're kind of speaking how you like him out there, then there might be a little bit of a smaller low-end deal that he's able to go get that's just too far more than what Seattle wants to spend, especially if Seattle's trying to attempt to play the compensatory game. Because that's another factor in this with Fant is it's not only about how you have a lack of ability of using Fant, it's also about the fact that if Fant goes out there and signs a $13 million a year contract on a 3-year deal, or hell, I'll even go low end if you're thinking I'm shooting too high, a 3-year, $33 million deal. That still probably brings you back a 4th, 5th round compensatory pick on that side of it. So that's also a bit, maybe a factor into this, just a little bit. Feed Me says, thanks for the morning stream. My pleasure, Feed Me. I want to get more of these kind of bonus streams out occasionally with you guys, and I appreciate you guys checking out. Gar says, B&B's Dynamite. Dynamite. Thank you, man. I appreciate you for that. Meg says, the Hawk's Nest, the cod piece, purely for my overactive imagination. It'll be a form-fitting cod piece, Megan. No cup, form fit. Gar says, haven't heard Monet's name all season. I like French cuisine, though. Yeah, that was one of the weirder contract extensions that they've given out in the last couple of years, and they've given some odd ones out at times. Alan says, have a good night, man. Go Hawks, brother. Sup says, Lockett could also be restructured, possibly. There's another one, Sup. Thank you, man. That's right. Though you're up against the cap, you've got a lot of cap flexibility. And more than being sometimes up against the cap, the flexibility is the bigger part that you pay a little bit closer attention to. King's House says, what you're saying is I might have a chance of seeing Draymond Jones PFF. Only the very at the very bottom. It's still not enough. Kirk says the Seahawks have about eight realistic cut options that would create roughly $80 million in cap space. You succinctly put it much better than I did, Kirk. There it is. You have the ability that flexibility to move. You're not going to use all of it, but you can use what you need of it. And if it is a team that's now moving into that 3rd year of this rebuild, into now surely a phase of here we are ready to contend, then you shouldn't have as many holes that you need to go out there and address with that cap space. There will be some holes, but you've got some that you're going to retain in-house. Some you can get figured out on the open market, but they've got plenty of flexibility in what they could do or what they could want to do. Megan says, we'll see you at the member stream B. Not sure about the B&B show afterwards. I have a few things to do this afternoon. Well, you've hung him in for 2 shows on the day. That's pretty damn good, Megan. I feel good about that and appreciate you for watching and doing all your mod duties as you do. A noob says, Gino is the one that makes the most sense. I can't see him paying him $40 million a year. Certainly could be another spot they go to on it, noob. Yeah. Everything's in play. And I like the fact that they got kind of a variety of options as opposed to being sort of shoehorned, down a path of where you have to make this guy the cut or that guy the cut. This one, you get to really make sure of whoever you're making the cut, whoever you're extricating yourself from, you're sure about that move and feel good about that when you pull that lever. But the levers are there to be pulled. Sup, we could feature Fant if we didn't have so many playable wide receivers. That's what, as I like to call Sup, first world problems. Guard Knight, thank you for the $5 donation. And Guard, thank you for the 7th or 8th donation today. You're always very kind on all of your donations. I really appreciate everything you do on the channel and your support of it. I want to get some WFT gear. Collector's items. You bring up a good point on this, Garth. We're hearing that for sure they're going to be changing the name to something after this year. That will then make the Washington football team gear super, I would think, as a collector's item at that point. I would think it would. You want to get your hands on probably something, Garth, because I'm hearing a lot about them changing their name, which is good because the Commanders sucks. Red Wolves, I don't care, just something. Commanders is lame. That was the most boring vanilla name they could have picked. Noob says, yeah, that's bad. A 4th or 5th for a second round. Yeah, that's bad. A 4th or 5th for a second in a good draft. I thought John S. was a really good general manager, but he might let Jeanette have a problem managing cap space. We'll see. I think it's pretty good. I think they're just trying to, it is year 2 of the rebuild. And I think there is a little bit of a process here of still figuring out what you got. How is this team going to develop into that contending team? With this 3rd youngest roster in football, you're kind of figuring it out a little bit, I think. Greg says Fan needs to be on a tight end based offense to get the most out of him so he can get his first big contract. Yeah, agreed. I think he would be better suited. If I'm Fant, I wouldn't try to come back to Seattle. I'd look to go to more of I might call the Chiefs up and be like, hey, Kelsey's getting up there a little bit, Ron Duffney, how you doing? Good to see you in the house, brother. Femi, why the heck do I open Seahawks Google and all the Twitter posts were all about the Ravens? WTF? I don't know. That is weird. King says Darryl Taylor also had Bruce Irvin teaching him techniques too. I'm surprised he hasn't really used them. Oh yeah, Ryan Monet exists. I swear I forgot all about him. Yeah, he's easy to forget. Not easy to forget when you go look at Sports Track and see what he's costing our cap. Then you start to remember him real quick. But yeah. Hawks Nest, the Hawks Nest form fitting works for me, brother. It's called the bulge line, Megan. It's the bulge line of the cod pieces. Lazy Dog says, all love everyone. Win Seahawks. See why later. See you later, man. Kingdom Joe, most serious and favorite memorabilia I have. A genuine official Super Bowl program from our winning Super Bowl. It's thick as a Bible and beautiful. Mine's, of course, my Largent jersey behind me, my signed Largent jersey behind me. That's going to be with me to the day I die. That sucker. And not too far outside of my sight. Not out of my sight. Well, I want to thank all the Taylor, Brandon Taylor, Megan Gock, Roger, Garth Knight multiple times over, Brandon Taylor multiple times over, Wu-Tang Financial. Thank you to all of you for all of the donations today on the chat. I really appreciate you for all you guys do on your support of it. Thank you for hanging out with me here on a kind of a rare midday show here. Appreciate you guys checking it out. I want to thank the sponsor one more time, Underdog Fantasy. We got our picks in today. We're going to go over Adam Thielen at 67.5 yards. We're going to go over Frankie Louvu, 5 tackles, over Cole Kmet with 4 receptions, and more than 6 points for Cairo Santos tonight. I might even add 1.5 more receptions for Saunders too, as I got that as a note in here. So we might just do a 5 stack on this tonight. But I do want to thank Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring the show throughout the course of this year. You can use my code right now, NEST. They will match you up to 100% of your first deposit, $100, up to $100 on me, and you support the program. I want to thank all of you guys for doing such a great job of utilizing that code throughout the course of this season, as you guys have been amazing with that. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from them in what you've done. And it's been hard for you guys because not all of you are in the state of, all of you that are in the state of Washington, of course, have some restrictions at play here. But you guys have been awesome with it, and I really, really, really do appreciate it. All right. Well, let's wrap it up on that. Garth's going to finish it off with one more dono. Let me say, let's see, we got, do you guys know one guy who knows outside there? Keldon, lurking and hearing bulge pieces. What kind of show are you running here? It goes off the rails a couple hours in, Keldon. You know how this is, man. It starts to get a little bit, well, especially after a tough loss like this. Garth, thank you for the $5 donation. And finish it off right here with a tremendous amount of support on this channel. You guys are unbelievable. It says, Brando, I'm blasted. What are the 2 best choices on a 2-leg parlay? I'm going to go with these 2. These were the biggest picks. I'm going to go with them. Give me Thielen at 67.5 yards. Go with the over there. And give me Frankie Louvu with more than 5 tackles. Those are the 2. If you need a third, you don't like one of those 2, you can pick Cole Kmet with more than 4 receptions. But those would be my picks. It started out with somebody referencing a Batman Robin thing, and it just went from there, Keldon. We go wherever the chat takes us here. There are no rules on this road. There are no speed limits. You know what I mean? What can I say? Greg says, if a player doesn't play the week you make a bet, do you get your money back? Yeah, it's kind of like works like that. It's like you get not the money back, but like he gets removed as the part of the deal, and then what you can make on the picks then reduces down with it. So it doesn't necessarily hurt you, but it hurts you in the maximum amount you could go out there and win is reduced. So it has worked that. And it's a great little app to play. There's a lot of different games you can get in. You get in weekly fantasy. You get these over-under kind of picks that I'm doing right now. They've got different sports, hockey, basketball, all that at play. Giving over $200,000 away every week here in the NFL as Underdog Fantasy throughout the course of the season. So jump in there today. Hop on in. Go win some money. And let's see if you guys helped me to win some money with these picks. I thank you guys today for watching. Leonard Williams, I'm liking what he's bringing to the table. I'm liking what he brought this past week. He's going to help this Seahawks defense this season. No doubt about that. Is he going to be enough to take us up to the top of contender state, to help us get back to front, to get a team that can go out there and really make some noise in the playoffs? We're just going to have to see about that part as we go through the rest of this year, aren't we? Either way, though, I do appreciate you watching here, subbing up, liking up. About to cross 14,200 subscribers here. We're right on the edge of it. The growth here has been tremendous and insane. So thank you to all of you guys out there that have come over and jumped aboard the Hawks Nest. It's very much appreciated as we keep rolling along. I'll be back in a couple hours for members on this channel at 5 o'clock for that stream, and then we'll be doing an 8 o'clock B&B show tonight. But until that time, I hope I don't have to remind you. I hope I don't let you know. I hope you guys got it at the forefront of your mind with a big game on deck, merely a couple days away. But just in case you might be forgetting, don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.